I can't conceive how much sacrifice and work that took.
How do you come up with a big idea?
2017, I stumbled into crypto working on a side project. Ethereum started gaining traction. I thought that I had a unique approach that it was worthwhile for me to go and pursue it. And I had this eureka moment, but there's a way to build a data structure that tracks time.
Anatoly Yakovenko is the creator of Solana, one of the fastest growing blockchains in the world.
As CEO of Solana Labs, he's driving Web3 innovation, including...
I was born in the Soviet Union. My family literally had to give up the apartment that we lived in. I just think of my parents in the USSR raising kids. I can't conceive how much sacrifice and work that took.
How do you come up with a big idea?
2017, I stumbled into crypto working on a side project. Ethereum started gaining traction. I thought that I had a unique approach that it was worthwhile for me to go and pursue it. And I had this eureka moment, but there's a way to build a data structure that tracks time.
Anatoly Yakovenko is the creator of Solana, one of the fastest growing blockchains in the world.
As CEO of Solana Labs, he's driving Web3 innovation, including the launch of the Solana Seeker,
A smartphone built for the crypto era.
Why would Solana launch a mobile phone?
Mobile was like my baby. There is an opportunity to make something better for users and an opportunity to make something for developers.
Why should you not buy an iPhone this year and get a Solana Seeker?
Because a large part of the world is not stuck in iPhone land. Apple and Google will eventually add crypto support. Until they add it natively, it's an opportunity to onboard a bunch of crypto users to a new platform.
What made you want to become successful?
I had to, between child, job, and side project, pick two. I quit my job and my wife is working and supporting us. My wife really pushed me to take the lead.
People say that Solana is just for meme coins.
Apple makes almost $0 from the iOS App Store. The vast majority of the revenue comes from games. Meme coins are kind of that silly, dumb, casual stuff that pays for the infrastructure.
How do you deal with FUD on a personal level when all the haters come out to celebrate your downfall?
So, I was born in the FUD. It was
69% of the people who watch this podcast have not subscribed. If you enjoy this show, if it provides value to you in one way, shape or form, can I please ask you a little favor? Can you click that subscribe button, give this video a like and leave a comment down below. It helps this show more than you can imagine. My goal is to bring the absolute biggest and brightest people on this channel, and the best way to get there is to have all of us rally together and build the When Shift Happens family. Thank you. This conversation is supported by Jupiter, the most used decentralized trading platform on Solana and the largest DAO in the world. Bitwise Asset Management, the crypto specialist asset manager with more than $10 billion in client assets and more than 30 crypto solutions across ETFs, index funds, alpha strategies, staking, and more. 3. A scalable layer 1 blockchain that's fast, secure, and affordable, built by previous Facebook developers, and that delivers the benefits of Web3 with the ease of Web 2. And Mental, an Ethereum layer 2 that builds two products I particularly like. FBTC, which enables you to borrow and lend Bitcoin in DeFi, and METH or METH, one of the largest ETH liquid staking protocols in crypto. To support this show, please check the sponsors links in the description down below. You're telling me you're 5 minutes late and I saw you shit post on Fartcoin. Which you like to do.
Yeah, always working.
So Fartcoin is a part of the job.
Yeah, I think so.
Being a Fartcoin evangelist.
Yeah.
Except from being a Fartcoin evangelist, if you had to describe what it is you do and why you do it, what would you say?
Most of my day-to-day now is kind of talking to startup founders, some Solana mobile stuff, and then like managing some of the protocol changes, kind of L7 principal engineer. I don't actually have to do a lot of the design work anymore. I'm just kind of making sure the teams are aligned.
How much of your job is still technical?
So it's like about a third, I would say.
How much do you enjoy doing non-technical work? If you're an engineer,
the talking to startup founders is fun, but it can get tedious because like there's just a lot of them, and like myself in those early days, you're just bad at communicating your idea. Like it's just terrible. Like they're all,
that's the feedback, guys.
Yeah, they're all bad.
Learn how to communicate. Damn it.
They're all bad. The ideas are not well formed. It's kind of very rough around the edges, but they're better than me than when I started. So like they have hope. They're not hopeless.
How do you learn that? Just learning by doing? Or
Yeah,
did you do
yeah.
something?
This is literally just 1,000 meetings is kind of what you have to go through.
Who are you?
Co-founder of Solana. It's mediocre snowboarder.
You're the co-founder of Solana Labs,
Yeah.
the company behind Solana. How do you come up with a big idea?
I've always been kind of coding on something on the side. When I went to school in Urbana-Champaign, I was at the startup. We were building voice over IP systems. This was like 99, 2000, pre-dot-com crash. And even after I graduated, ended up in San Diego, just every day I would like be working on something else besides my real job. So I always had something in the background, and I stumbled into crypto working on a side project building deep learning hardware. And this is like 2017 kind of pre transformer paper and stuff.
I read that you actually started to code when you were 5 years old.
No.
Is that correct?
No. In the USSR, there wasn't an opportunity.
I was
to code.
thinking that. I was like, this is weird.
But there was a class that had some programming in BASIC. I kind of hated it in like 5th grade, and I switched to theater. It was like
How much do you like theater?
I like some of it. Not a fan of musicals, but like drama and stuff. Yeah.
So I mean, destiny brought you to Silicon Valley, but you might have have gone a bit more south to Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I doubt it. Not as a professional.
How often do you get lost in your thoughts?
Depends how much coffee I have. I've actually haven't drank coffee this year. This was one of my things that I wanted to change because I was at like 7 cups a day.
So the more you drink coffee, the more you get lost in your thoughts?
Yeah, it's different. You kind of get into like the loops are faster. If I'm not caffeinated, I actually do more thinking at a slower pace, and it's usually the results are better. Like I go on a bike ride, and while I'm, trying to climb a hill, I can actually think through a hard problem.
What's the moment you realize I need to stop caffeine or drink less coffee?
It just kind of goes in cycles. It's not like a permanent thing. It's just
I'm just going to remove that. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
I didn't want to do it. There's a common pattern across most of the very successful people who I interview on this podcast. They have a sort of childhood trauma or something that happened in their life that give them the fire in the belly that they have today and the hunger of success. What happened in your life that made you want to become successful?
I mean, I was born in the Soviet Union, so when I kind of think back of how my life is challenging or I'm stressed, even before Solana or like in the worst part of the startup of it, I just think of my parents in the USSR raising kids, like making it work, then moving to the US in their 40s, learning a new language, and it's just, I can't conceive how much sacrifice and work that took, and I'm like, in comparison, I feel like I'm lazy, How
much did you realize that as a kid, my parents are going through a hard time, versus now as an adult, you're thinking, man, what I'm doing is nothing compared to what they had to do?
Yeah, I think I had to be like a fully formed adult, like 25, before I started thinking outside of myself and like, oh man, my parents must have had it really hard.
I read that unlike many kids, you never really care about fitting in. Where does that come from?
Fitting in?
Not caring, because usually kids, they kind of feel like, I need to be the kid of the school, right? I need to be popular.
Yeah, I think as an immigrant, you kind of never have that choice to fit in. So you're always kind of practice being the misfit in some way. Because you move, right? You have an accent. You have a different name. So you kind of become comfortable being a misfit.
How much did you feel about that?
I don't really think about it. I think there's always kind of, maybe being in the US, at least in the 90s. We moved to the States in the 90s, so I was 11. It's probably a hard transition for a 11-year-old to kind of deal with that, but the US is big, and there's just a group of people that is more like you, somewhere. it's not monoculture anywhere, I would say, in the United States.
Yeah, so you just go and you find your tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Dear When Shift Happens family, the following message is probably the single most important thing you should take away from today's podcast. If you're serious about your crypto investing journey, please take some time to learn how to self-custody your assets to make sure that nobody can take your coins away. Ever. If you don't learn how to be your own bank, it is very likely that one day you will lose all your hard-earned crypto. The safest way to hold your crypto is in a cold storage that we also call hardware wallets. Hardware wallets are not complicated and they give you peace of mind. I personally use a hardware wallet called Treasure. It is open source, very easy to use, and the first hardware wallet created ever. As we like to say in crypto, not your keys, not your coin. You can order your Treasure wallet with a 10% discount by following the link in the description down below and by using the promo code WSH10. And now, back to the episode. You moved, you said, in the 90s to the US. How much would reaching even 1/10 of what you've achieved would have been possible had you not moved to the US and specifically to Silicon Valley or San Francisco?
Yeah, zero. Like, I think, knock on wood, man. I'm so grateful to be here. My parents moved here,
So it was random that your parents moved to San Francisco? Or you lived somewhere else before?
We landed in Chicago, so I grew up in Chicago. I was always nerdy, interested in computers. Started programming around 16, so I was in high school. We had a physics teacher that taught basic programming class in C. And I kind of had my first eureka moment where we were building this cheesy Tron game where you have a line that you can't cross the other line as you control it, but we had to build an algorithm to automatically control it, like an AI, right, a bot. And I had this eureka moment to build a greedy algorithm. I didn't know how to describe any of this, to code it up in a way that beat everyone else that had more systems that were trying to do a systematic way to go attack you. Mine was just reactive and greedy, and it won, beat everyone. And I kind of had this my first eureka moment of finding a nugget that was very clever and small and short and sweet.
And this is what made you like computer science more, which you didn't like before?
I mean, I was always interested in it, but that was when I think kind of really got into it.
And it's shortly after that you started this voice over IP.
That was startup. A few years later when I got to college. The advantage that I had was that I kind of jumped into real programming when I joined that startup, and we were dealing with physical phone cards and flakiness of hardware and that kind of stuff that takes a few years to get to, typically, when you're starting as a student, because they try to teach you the algorithms and kind of the abstract things and in an environment where you don't have to deal with the real world, which is flaky and fails all the time. You actually you miss a lot of how that works, but I had the opportunity to learn that early. And one, it teaches you that it is really just very, very dumb, like a light switch, just a bajillion light switches. And it's under the hood, it's just, electrical signals and basically switches and stuff. Which is very hard to get to if you're in doing abstract data structures on top of Java for 3 years in your undergrad. You don't actually see how you turn on an LED light, even the basics like that.
Where does this nerdy side come from? Do you have a parent who is very technical?
Yeah, I mean, both my parents were engineers, so it kind of, I think it's probably a bit genetic.
What happened to this voice over IP?
Oh, it failed. So this was 99 to 2003. We built the system that, take a Linux box and you put these POTS POTS cards or whatever they were called that could plug into a regular phone line. And then you can control, you can set up a whole automated voice system with different messages and kind of stuff that Google Voice does right now. an idea was to bootstrap it by selling these to like small businesses, because they were, 10 times cheaper than kind of the service you get out of, traditional phone company like AT&T to go do all this stuff for you. But 2001 is when the dot-com crashed, and like we were in central Illinois and just had no idea how to do the business side. If I had like been more ambitious, I kind of understood how Silicon Valley works, we could have just gone out here, Silicon Valley, and pitched building a global Google Voice. Like the thing that like the big difference in like I think software and starting a small business is your goal isn't to build like a company that is selling products and slowly growing. It's to build a service for the entire world all at the same time and onboard as many users and kind of win that thing for the world. And thinking in that scale just takes a while. You have to see it like happen a couple times.
How did you learn that?
I mean,
how did you learn to go? Because that's the problem I have, and probably a lot of other entrepreneurs have. Like you're thinking, I need to build this thing. It needs to be profitable. It needs to be a business, right? Make a profit, etc. But some people don't. The VCs they don't want to hear that. They want to hear the next mega thing, right? How do you go from
you need
thinking
to be
small
both.
to thinking big?
You need to be both. You need to have a sense of how do I sell this and get to runway and extend my runway. Like effectively every dollar that you sell is a dollar you have to raise. And you need to be kind of like, as a startup founder, you're a wounded animal. You have a lifespan. It's no more than 36 months. You're dead. Most startups have 18 months, right? You like raised about 24 months of runway basically. But your vision and how you think of the product, I think, should be global. You're building a piece of technology that anybody in the world can use. So you're selling everybody in the world should be your customer. Effectively, it doesn't matter if they're in Japan or China or wherever, Africa. There's a way for them to use it through the internet. So you have to think in that global way.
So instead of going around Silicon Valley and knocking doors and selling this big vision for voice over IP, you decided to take a job?
Qualcomm was building voice over IP stuff, and they were using the same open source stack as we used. So I was basically hired at the spot because there's just very few engineers that ended up in that rabbit hole, and it was kind of an easy hire for them. And this was still 2003. It was pretty hard to get hired as a software engineer. My advisor was telling me that maybe software is not a good career choice.
Mm-hmm. I read about that actually.
Yeah, just kind of crazy. And
how did you react when we were told that? Did you even, for 1 second, hesitate, or just thinking, no, I'm just going to follow my gut, I don't care what these people are saying?
Yeah, I didn't hesitate because I was having fun programming already. And like the best advice you can get, like you have to work, you're going to spend a big chunk of your life working, like, 20 to 30% of it. So do something that you have fun at, because that's what's going to actually drive your success. If you're having fun, you get to master that task. And as you master it, you kind of level up. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be drama, artist, just doing plays or whatever, right? If you love it, you master it. And that's where your success comes from, is through that repeated, constantly repeating and getting better and better. But I was already having fun. I was coding for fun, kind of constantly starting side projects. So I was hooked. And at that time, I only basically got 2 offers. One was in Chicago, one was in San Diego. And when I flew out to San Diego, I was like, California's the best place to be.
Mostly because of weather?
Yeah.
So you came here for the weather and stayed here for the...
Yeah, me and my buddy, we would wake up, surf, bike to work, which is 18 miles, bike back. But we would run at work because we were by this awesome canyon, then bike back, then surf again, then go play underwater hockey. That was our day. And while we're doing this exercising, we were just, we always had like a side project that we were coding on, and we would just kind of shoot the shit. Maybe we'd do it this way, maybe we'd do it like this. So it was a mixture of just being IC is just called an individual contributor, if people don't know what that is. So like you don't have any management responsibilities. You get like a hard problem to work on at work, and you just pour your brain into it. But we were lucky enough to work at a place that was kind of nobody like kept track of if your butt was in the seat or not. Your managers trusted you, and they cared that you finished the work and did an excellent job. So I was able to like mix working out and work at the same time.
You mentioned the most important is to have fun, right?
Yeah.
You seem that you had a lot of fun beside the job, doing all these things, surfing, running, working out. You were doing side projects that you mentioned also before, probably having a lot of fun. Did you have fun at your main job? Is it possible to have fun as an employee?
Yeah, it was awesome. So the period of time where I was at Qualcomm, like mobile phones went through this like really crazy rapid evolution. It was faster than, people say Moore's Law is twice as good every 2 years, but there was a design and process improvement, it felt like, every year. So this is actually kind of a big part of my experience, is that I had to kind of think about writing software for the next generation hardware, so I didn't have to rewrite it. So I was always thinking, are there like bottlenecks here that should be parallelized and things like that? You basically assume that next generation hardware is going to be twice as good. So you don't want to rewrite the software again. So you're trying to design for something that gets faster and faster.
You spent 13 years?
Yeah.
Why?
One, because San Diego's awesome. So weather's unbeatable.
Love it. Simple things.
Yeah, and like I was an Ironman. Like I was working out at a level where I could like do an Ironman triathlon and still like mess around on whatever side project I wanted.
Have you ever done an Ironman?
Yeah.
How was that experience?
I was slow, so I'm like a 13-hour Ironman for me, and it's a very slow time.
What's the typical time that someone who is not slow would do?
I guess I'm probably around average for like non-professional. The pros do it in I think 8 hours. I think sub 8 hours maybe at this point.
So you're not one of those who says, I want to basically be the best at everything, sport included, and then kill yourself?
No, actually, I don't care about being the best. I care about myself getting better.
Interesting.
There's no way for me to be the best because I'm not a professional, not genetically gifted like the pros, right? So, but I can have fun and get better.
Do you think like that only in sport, or do you think like that in every area of your life? I don't care about being the best because I don't have that much control over competition. I care about getting better every day.
I like competing, so I like being in competition and being at my limit. I like being the second to worst player in the team. It's a good spot.
Why?
Because it means you really have to push yourself, right? I don't want to be the worst because then I'm bringing, I feel like I'm dragging the team down and I shouldn't be there. But if I made the team legitimately and I'm, not the best player, but I'm pushing myself and kind of killing myself, it's a good feeling, right? You get to see everyone else get better and see what they're doing and learn.
And that's where also there is the most progress for you, obviously.
Yeah.
How did you get so fascinated by the world of crypto and the blockchain?
2008 crisis was pretty crazy, the financial crisis in the US and the banks seizing customer funds in Greece was also pretty nuts because it's wealth seizure, right? And that was very jarring to me because that was basically you're at the whims of the state, like you are in the USSR. Part of my trauma got triggered.
Did you know someone personally who went through this experience in Greece? Or
No.
it's just you read and you're like, actually, there is always this thing where we might think, this can only happen to others. This is Greece. This is Europe. We're the US, right? Hey, this is different.
As the USSR fell apart, property rights vanished, right? So my family literally had to give up the apartment that we lived in, everything there to leave, right? So you didn't have this sense of control of your life or safety, right? So it's very triggering. it's like brought back all that trauma. I wish I channeled it into buying Bitcoin, but instead I just fucked around with like trying to see if I can make it faster or like build a better way to mine it. And it was already moving so fast that by the time I was like, oh, maybe I can build like a GPU miner, somebody already shipped one. If I could build an FPGA one, somebody shipped one.
So this is early 2010?
Yeah. Yeah, and there was this like Butterfly Labs or something. There was this ASIC company. So because I worked at a chip company, I was like very interested in like the hardware side of it. There was this Butterfly Labs that sold Bitcoin miners, and they like that was my first drug. They like took your pre-order and then they held on to the hardware for like took 6 months to ship it after they got it. So they used it to like use all the hash power advantage of the ASIC, and then they sent it to you. It's hilarious. So it was like useless.
Well, like a lot of things in this industry still today. How long did you fuck around trying to do some stuff with Bitcoin before realizing, man, this is much bigger than I thought?
I didn't get the social impact of it because, like, as an engineer, I was very skeptical of its ability to like actually scale to a global use case, and like, or that people would like buy it, because it was at that time like the people that were really into it were like the weirdos that were like way out there. So,
did you go and meet some of these weirdos?
Yeah, I mean, I got introduced to it through like underwater hockey. There were a couple of people that were really into it, and underwater hockey.
They were too weirdo for you. You're like, man, I don't want to.
Underwater hockey itself is a weird sport that attracts a bunch of weirdos, right? So these guys were like on the outlier of that group.
Continue.
And like, I was aware of Ethereum, but not deeply aware. I kind of dismissed it also as like, oh, they're adding kind of this JavaScript to Bitcoin, which I thought.
How much did that make sense to you?
It didn't. The stuff really clicked when around like 2017, 2016, where smart contracts made a lot more sense. The kind of so I had a buddy of mine and I, we were building deep learning hardware. We were just taking GPUs, like these were gaming cards, and we were sticking them in boxes and putting them at Hurricane Electric, which is like a data center around here. And we were mining crypto in the background to pay for the GPUs. It's like, seems obvious, right? And like we were messing around with deep learning, and this is before the Transformers paper, but this is when people figured out that you can kind of get these visual stacks to start hallucinating and doing some weird things.
This was a side hustle for you while you were at Dropbox.
Yeah, Dropbox, yeah.
And so you start mining to pay for this side hustle.
And I had like 2 coffees and a beer, and Ethereum started kind of gaining traction, and I had 2 coffees and a beer, and this like didn't sit with me. And this was with my buddy that we were working on these deep learning things with, and we were talking about single-threaded mining, or like, why do we need proof of work? Like, why is it so necessary? And I had this like 4 a.m. eureka moment that instead of tracking like energy or entropy, you could track time. So, that there's a way to build a data structure that tracks time. And I didn't have like much beyond that, but I couldn't Google for it. Like, I just didn't know how to describe it in a way that I could go find Dan Bonnet's papers on verifiable delay functions. So I thought that I had something really, really cool that nobody else had.
Was there anything out there that you couldn't find, but was there something else out there?
Yeah, verifiable delay functions. There was this cryptographic primitive that was pretty well known, and like Dan Bonnet, like out in Stanford, worked on them a bunch. And there was also RSA time locks, so you could also do some of this effect with like just RSA encryption, and it's this thing called a time lock, which is pretty cool. But none of these things were just like in the industry yet. They were just papers, right? Just like some PhD somewhere was working on them.
Why had no one done anything about that yet?
Because I think 2017 is really when scaling became an important problem. And that's where you had like a ton of different scaling solutions. In fact, like I think Ethereum research started working on DDFs and stuff as part of their design. But for me, it was just really some dumb luck that I didn't find somebody smarter than me working in this, because I would have been like, oh, okay, I don't have much to add here, because I'm not the expert, right? So I thought that I had enough kind of a unique approach that it was worthwhile for me to like go and pursue it. And my wife actually is the one that like really pushed me to take the leap. She was at Columbia when Facebook was just starting out, and she was working at a competitor, and it was this like kind of growth go to market fight between Facebook and I forget the Columbia one. And there's like a moment in like there's these kind of moments in Silicon Valley history where there is this new meta comes out, whether it's AI or crypto or social networks, and there's a whole rush of people trying to build companies around it. And you actually really do have about 6 months window to raise capital, get a team together, and then go have a shot at it. And if you wait too long, even if you have a great idea, it's just, there's enough competitors out there that VCs have moved on. They're like, okay, I already have a portfolio company that I invested in, so I'm conflicted out, right? So then it's hard for them to take a swing at it. So you kind of have to actually like go for the gold rush, if you will, if you're really interested in it. So she kind of told me, I had, she's been married to me, so she knows my personality. So we have a kid.
What's your personality like?
Well, I had to, between child, job, and side project, I had to pick two. And the child is mandatory. So really only had to pick between the side project and the job. I couldn't do both. Because there's no way for me to like go to work, then come home after work, spend another 8 hours, right? Like, and ignore the family and everything.
So that's what made you start Solana. Your wife telling you, hey, listen, you can pick 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Job, side hustle, or child, but child, basically, child, no choice.
Yeah.
Job or side hustle.
Yep.
Love it. How long did it, when she told you that, how long did it take you to say, okay, fuck the job?
About
for the side hustle?
2 days, honestly. It was very fast. And then I was like, okay, like once I decide something, I move pretty quickly. And like what's funny is, the Dropbox people are like, hey, this happens all the time. If it fails in 6 months, you can just come back.
Which is true.
Which is like, I think why a lot of folks underestimate the huge benefit of being in the Bay Area. You just have so many companies that are constantly hiring good engineers. Like no matter what people tell you about like AI transforming software development, it is, but just there's always room for like great engineers, like the knitting company, including Solana Labs. Like, so if you're a great engineer, reach out.
No, but I spent a couple of weeks here. I told you before, interviewing a bunch of people, Brandon from Phantom, the SUI guys, and I just realized, if I take my phone, which is an iPhone, it was built here.
Yeah.
If I look at the 5 apps I use the most, they're all built here. And then all these folks now, the previous Facebook, Twitter, etc., all building in crypto. It's incredible. And at the same time, it makes sense that everything comes from here when you see. If everything comes from here, probably everything gonna come from here. Because you can feel when you go to SUI offices, the they say, we had the same office. We had the same office then we had a Facebook, right? They kind of take the culture and you can lower this kind of fear of failure, as you said, because you can just go back to all these companies that are the big companies in the world. It's incredible.
Yeah, the freedom to fail here is very unique, and like it's very forgiving. So I don't think there's another place in the world. It is changing now. I think crypto itself, I think, has transformed how people can raise money and where they can kind of set up shop and build. But I think for the most part, Silicon Valley, like what actually I think is going to happen is you don't have an opportunity to build a second Silicon Valley. That's the internet and crypto. So like crypto itself is now the second Silicon Valley. And it's very hard to compete with both the existing physical Silicon Valley that's already established and now this internet-based one, which is kind of the crypto land. So I think those two are effectively going to prevent any other city or area from gaining any like repeatable traction.
Absolutely, because if you're here, you realize, I mean, you in New York, it's also big, etc. But we always think, crypto is all this online thing, but I'm interviewing everyone from Silicon Valley, and they're all connected in 5 different fashion. Yeah. And this, whether it's an online thing or the new internet, like it's people working together, right? And you feel it. Basically, you feel the difference. It's kind of a no-brainer, just like being here. I'm realizing. You co-founded Solana Labs. What is Solana? If you had to explain it to your mom. Your mom is an engineer, it doesn't count. If you had to explain to my mom, she's not an engineer.
It's a cheaper way to send money. So I can explain that part. Or if she is from Eastern Europe, then you can say it's money that the government can't steal from you. That's another way you can explain it.
You mentioned before this kind of eureka moment. I thought I was so smart, and because you kind of discovered this thing called proof of history.
Yeah. So
can you explain that to a normal dude like me? I'm not technical.
Yeah. So the funny thing is I don't even think it's needed. This is the funny thing is, but the technical term is it's a verifiable delay function.
What does that mean?
So it's a way to like produce a piece of data that when you receive it, you can estimate how much time it took to generate it with some hard boundaries. So because you can say that like the fastest chip anyone could make is this fast, and there's no way to speed up the process that we use, like the algorithm, the math that was used to generate this data, you know that it took at least 10 milliseconds or 100 milliseconds. So then you can create a clock that nobody has control over, that everyone can agree on. And that was kind of the idea. And why you need a clock is basically, it's almost easier to explain it in like radio terms. So if you remember your physics, radio waves interfere with each other. So sometimes you have static when you're messing around with old school radio, that's analog, right? You have these knobs and stuff. If 2 towers transmit at the same time over the same frequency, those radio waves interfere. So the first protocol people built was called time division multiple access, where they give each tower a synchronized clock and they alternate by time. So tower A goes on second 1, tower B goes on second 2, and they just alternate. And there's no collision, and you can get up to 100% of channel utilization this way, meaning that in any given moment in time, there's no interference and somebody's transmitting signal. Make sense? Kind of like from a high level. Like if you and I talk at the same time, you get noise. So we have to take turns. Yeah. So we need some protocol for that. And we can use a clock. And that means if you and I both have a clock, we don't have to talk to each other when we hand off the turns. I just know I always talk on minute 1. You always talk on the even minutes. I talk on the odd ones, right?
It's 2018, and you go out there with this new architecture and new way of doing blockchain, right? So how easy was it? I was talking with Steven from Arbitrum the other day, and he was saying, I mean, Ethereum was there, they're building this kind of layer 2, but even for them, coming up with a different approach was extremely hard to, I mean, he said because he had really good credentials on like the academic side, it was kind of not too hard to raise money, but to have people to even accept a new idea was very hard.
Yeah, that took a lot of work. Basically, people discounted us and didn't think it was going to work. And then, even if it works, does anybody need it, kind of thing. So that took a while. And also didn't understand the implication of it. And this is where I think people, like, going back to that example, right? If you and I have to take turns, we have to have some protocol to take a turn, right? You like say, I'm done. Then I say, okay, I see you're done. Now I'm going to talk. And this is what most blockchains are like. And because there's this like protocol between us taking turns, there's a gap in when actual data is transmitted, because it's now you're taking this time to go do this thing. So this idea of adding a clock and using 100% of the bandwidth, people just didn't understand that was important. But that's what effectively allows the chain to scale with hardware. And we've seen now, like, I think there's been better consensus protocols and stuff that can achieve similar effect without the need of proof history and just in a simpler way. And like the industry has gotten to understand that that's really, really important. So that's been kind of the name of scaling. It's like, how do I utilize hardware 100% of the time without any of these gaps or like inefficiencies? Because once you do that, then you're done. And you can, a year from now, you're going to have better chips, better networks. And that's kind of like, going back to my Qualcomm days, that's when I knew it was done, is if I can write the software such that next year the hardware just makes it run faster. There were people that got it, and that's the reason why they invested. And there were a bunch of people that didn't get it and dismissed it. But I'd expect every idea that's kind of worth pursuing to be on that edge. And what I've heard people describe it as like, what you want to be working on is like black licorice. I don't know if you ever had it. It's a candy that like 95% of people don't like. So it's got this like weird medicinal taste. So if you build something that everybody likes, it's too generic and kind of boring, and there's already too much competition for that. But if you build black licorice, you get a niche of people that are like, oh man, I've never had this before. It's great. And that's your nugget. That's where you start with. And if you're lucky, you change the market and the landscape, because you're so right that it now shifts and that becomes the more dominant thing. But it's hard to predict, right? Like nobody knows what that happens. But if you build for like the majority of people's kind of opinions, it's very unlikely that you'll discover that.
The reason you got into crypto and that Bitcoin interested you, I mean, you're an engineer, so there's definitely the engineering side, but probably also you saw the price moving. That's what attracted a lot of people initially.
Well, if the price didn't move, we couldn't then pay for the GPUs.
Absolutely.
So what really I think kind of pushed me over the line was that Ethereum scaling issues were very familiar to me, because you have this single computer that's replicated, so you can't speed it up easily. So and you're trying to make everybody in the world, trying to get everyone in the world to use it. So it's a very resource constrained environment. And I spent 10 years, 13 years working on embedded systems where every byte in memory allocation counts. So looking at Ethereum's design and this idea that, we can use 100% of the bandwidth, my back of the envelope paper math was it's going to be 1,000 times faster. So there was a product that I understood, which is software that people run on a computer, smart contracts, and it's very resource constrained, a problem that I knew how to solve. and I had a solution that was on paper 1,000 times better. So to me, it was kind of a no-brainer to go take a swing at it.
This weird thing in crypto where, because you said before, we have this new approach. Some people will not believe in us, 95%, 5% will believe in us, will invest. Then we're building, right? But you build, but you don't know. I mean, deep inside, you know that you believe in yourself, right? But you don't know if this is going to get any adoption. And then there's this very weird thing, which is a token that has a price that is moving a lot, right? And that people, when the price goes up or goes up a lot, people will think a certain way about your protocol or your project while you are building this thing that you hope gets real traction, which is not just the price of a token moving, right? So 2018, 19, 20, you're fully locked in, you build your protocol, and then the price goes up like crazy.
Well, that happened way after. It was 21 at least, and the kind of end of 20.
How is that linked?
Yeah.
How is that linked to you being locked in every day and building Solana that the price does whatever?
So
500x. And how do you stay locked in when this happens? Because probably it messes with your mind.
For whatever reason, myself and Raj and all the founders were pretty skeptical of the price. So what we cared about, do we have enough runway to support the engineers and keep building? That was the important part. And then the price itself was I don't know if it's real. If it went up 500x in whatever X many months, it can go down 500x in X many months. At least I've been trading long enough in real markets where you know that it's actually easier to go down, right? And when we launched mainnet, it was literally we decided, okay, we got it to work. The network was stable for weeks. That was our signal. We got 2 weeks of no downtime. We were running out of money. We had 9 months of runway left. And it was basically do or die. And we said, okay, we're going to launch. And 2 days after we announced we're going to have this, we're going to launch, both Bitcoin and the normal markets dropped 70% because of COVID. So you have this oh man, we called the investors that we talked to were we don't know what's going to happen. They're we don't know if the fund is going to be active in a couple of weeks. So you guys you're on your own.
I had Tushar on the podcast and we talked about that moment.
Yeah.
And he said that one of the biggest mistakes they've done is they didn't wait out, the crash. They actually kind of panic sold and then got back in. So even them were massive believers. I mean, I don't know, but they were massive believers and very successful at what they do. Obviously, you have this very, very weird moment where no one knows what the fuck happened, and you might think it could be the end of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I tell founders that have tokens is that the only runway that's real is treasuries, not even cash in a bank. Because as that 4 years unraveled, these are banking failures. So if you have treasuries and treasurydirect.gov, that's real cash in the bank that isn't going to disappear. And that's just what you can count on as runway. Everything else you have to kind of think of as a hot wallet, right? So you have 3 months that is what you're risking in a bank, and that bank could fail.
So that's what you're doing. Say we have 3 months in the bank, all the rest is in treasury.
Yeah, and this is what my advice to founders, to not pay attention to the token price, but really care about their runway.
Is it the common practice in Silicon Valley to have 3 months of cash and then the rest in treasury?
It is now, because Silicon Valley Bank failed. I think people are far more careful now and far more serious. At least I hope the investors are telling their founders to pay attention to banking failure risk, because it's real. So we never for whatever reason, we maybe through the trauma that we shared through building Solana and the ups and downs, we just don't assume the token is going to be anything it might be worth, nothing tomorrow. It might be doing great. Who knows?
Whatever goes up too quickly must come back down. That's the rule.
That's the typical rule. But over the long term, the very long term, right? The market does weigh quality, right? Over the short term, it's who knows, right? But and for founders to succeed in an open market, they need to go focus on quality over a very long period of time. So usually if you're going to get product market fit, you're not going to get it right away. You have to kind of be early enough to grind and iterate and really suffer through years of finding your power users and finding that nugget that works. And then you kind of get lucky that you were early enough at the right thing and the market rapidly expands and you benefit from the 3 years of grinding during that expansion.
Napoleon Bonaparte said, "My downfall raises me to infinite heights." You went from 0 in 2018 to hero in 2021 to being ridiculed and even hated in 2022 when FTX, which had a big affiliation with Solana, collapsed. If I was a fly on the wall in your living room or in your office between the 2nd and the 12th of November 2022 when FTX collapsed, what would I have seen?
So I was really worried about the founder. By that time, there was a really good group of founders who were building on the network and they were raising money and they had kind of this long pipeline of products in development. I was terrified that they all had their funds in FTX because the catastrophe would have been that FTX collapsed and the entire ecosystem's runway is now dead. And luckily, it was actually a pretty small percentage, but some really great founders got totally screwed, like Armani, Backpack. They just raised a big round. They kept all their funds in FTX, and it was effectively locked. The crazy kind of upside from that was that they couldn't hire, so they had a small amount of runway left. They had to keep their team small, and they were just worked harder. And they really just did everything they could to go dig themselves out of that hole. And they meant launching Mad Lads, which I think that was a turning point, in that 6 or 7 months where things seemed really, really dark, outside of Vitalik's tweet. People credit to saving Solana, and I'm 50-50. If the time,
That's the next question.
If the time ever comes that I can lend a hand to Ethereum,
that's my next question.
Yeah, I absolutely will. I think he's a gem and awesome founder, and I think truly an example to follow. But that, I think Backpack and building Mad Lads and kind of jump-starting the NFT community and kind of product cycle really, really shifted everything.
How do you deal with FUD on a personal level when all the haters come out to celebrate your downfall?
So,
you're now laughing. I don't think so.
I landed in the States in '92. My parents got me a computer, and I was on RC chats throughout basically my adolescence and since then. So I was born in the FUD. It was
I was born in the FUD.
So to me, it's just part of the sparring online is you're just kind of in this shit show, constantly fighting people. It's kind of fun. It's almost fun. I would say it is one of the fun parts. Is being able to argue with anyone on the internet about these random things. So in a way, that part never bothered me.
Some smart people tell me there is an earnest, smart developer community in Solana. And now that the awful opportunistic money people have been washed out, the chain has a bright future. Hard for me to tell from the outside, but I hope the community gets its fair chance to thrive. This is a tweet from Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum, on December 29th, 2022. About 1 month after the FTX collapse. You said before, my question is, how much impact did this simple tweet have on the Solana ecosystem? You said 50-50.
It made me feel not alone, right? That there is people in crypto that actually care about what we're working on and building. And that's kind of like always been true behind the scenes. Like, actually, I respect the Ethereum core devs a lot. They're awesome. They're doing really good work. And I think I can't think of one that I have a bad relationship with. Even like Justin Drake, we will argue on podcasts or whatever, but I think he's awesome. And we talked about verifiable delay functions or whatever for years and stuff. So it was awesome to see it publicly, and like I think really helped.
Ethereum is in a bit of trouble lately, and they have a lot of internal questions. How much do you feel? I mean, it's obviously not as bad as what happened 2 years ago. But how much do you feel like personally did you tweet something? Did you say something? Or you feel like it's not your place to come and say, "Hey guys, look, like we've been in a dark moment or in a difficult moment," and I think it came like, "Now is my turn to go and."
I think Ethereum's actually fine. The fact that people are arguing and that Ethereum itself responds to that argument and changes means that it's going to be fine.
Good, yeah.
So like it's a painful process, right? To like shift direction or shift, architecture and stuff like that. And it's hard to do that when you have a $250 billion or $300 billion asset. Like the bigger the asset, the harder it is to do it. But like Bitcoin is completely frozen. So it cannot change. And this is probably to me the riskier part, is being completely like, what do they call it? Ossified.
So you think Bitcoin is more at risk than Ethereum, just by the mere fact that it can't really be changed?
Unless they got really lucky and just nailed the use case so perfectly, which is possible.
Mm. Interesting.
Like,
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like I don't think you need to be more. I don't think you need any more technology to build a digital gold. Like if that's the use case that has real like global product market fit, Bitcoin's already there and doesn't need change. But I think smart contract platforms are just more amorphous. They're harder to pin down. The requirements are much larger, so they need to be, I think, more mutable. And I think Ethereum is going to change and will probably be fine. Like it's got a bunch of really smart people working on it.
Absolutely. I'm actually interviewing many of them on this podcast, and that's when I realized these guys are another level for sure. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in raising every time we fall. This is a quote from Nelson Mandela. Solana went from a near-death event in late 2022 to one of the most flourishing and used blockchain within barely 2 years. What are the key elements that are to come together at the same moment for this to happen?
We had to have built a product that was differentiated enough, black licorice, that there was a core group that loved it. And I didn't have this as like a grand strategy or anything. A lot of it was necessity. Like we raised a small amount of funds relative to our competitors. Like I think altogether pre-launch we raised like $22 or $23 million, which sounds like a lot, but engineers are expensive, and that was not a ton of money compared to like 100 mil or whatever that Hedera raised or 100 that Avalanche raised, and all these kind of competitors had enough funding to, I think, build a much bigger feature set, which actually prevented them from building black licorice, like finding that nugget that people would choose over anything else because it solved a core problem for them. So I didn't have enough funding to build EVM support, which is kind of the obvious thing. All the developers are using EVM, so if you're building a blockchain, you need to have EVM support. But the cost of making EVM fast is very, very huge. Like Monad spent like 3 or 4 years, like $1 bajillion in development to optimize it. So we didn't have that. So I knew how to build fast virtual machines because I spent my career working on virtual machines. So we built one that we knew could showcase that the network is going to be really, really fast. And even though it was awkward to program, like we initially just had support for C, which is kind of a very low level language, and then Rust, which is not a standard smart contract language, but is becoming more so now. But basically, we kind of went into our own little territory, and we built something that was truly differentiated. It was cheap, it was fast, it could handle a large concurrent load of a lot of users and use cases, even though there were a ton of bugs along the way. Like, we basically had, like, the joke is I have this like 8 innovations kind of articles that I've published. What are the 8 optimizations we did? Each one of them could have been the 8 bugs that we had that all bit us in the butt at one point or another, but not all at the same time, luckily.
Yeah, I had Brandon sitting exactly where you're sitting from Phantom, and I asked him what's one of the reasons they built on Solana, and he said because I just sat down with Tolly and Raj, and they never kid themselves about having everything figured out.
Yeah,
it's very practical, right?
Yeah.
Like, in opposition to very theoretical, it's a very practical Silicon Valley tech approach.
I wouldn't even call it Silicon Valley tech. It's just very engineering minded. We had a specific set of problems we wanted to solve.
What was the inflection point or key moment in the last 2 years that changed the game for Solana?
I think my stress level started to kind of reduce around the Mad Labs launch. And this is after kind of I think that previous cycle was very stressful because things were just growing so quickly that and constant bugs and congestion and all this stuff. But finally around kind of, was it summer, 3 years ago at this point, there was the Helium blockchain. They moved to Solana, and Mad Labs launched on the same day. And the priority localized fee markets, all this stuff worked. Like, it wasn't perfect. And there were a bunch of bug fixes then, but like, these things worked well enough to where it was obvious to me, okay, it's going to be a bunch of work to fix these bugs, but the design is good and we can actually handle a bunch of stuff concurrently. And the community wasn't dead. Like, the Mad Labs thing was like very well received and like blew the records on NFT volumes and stuff. So it seemed like there were users, there was content, there were product developers, all this stuff was like actually working without a ton of support from me or from anyone else. And then I think for whatever reason, like, things really picked up. I think probably because of kind of the products I've been building for the 2 years prior were mature enough to then launch tokens and do full integrations, and kind of the ecosystem exploded.
I had Mert, one of the 2 best customer support officers or reply guys at Solana. He's actually the one who made this happen. Shout out, Mertz. You're obviously the other top customer support officer at Solana. Why should every founder CEO be the customer support officer?
I think you always should talk to the users because you kind of need to know their pain points. Like, the way I hired and my philosophy in like early stage company development was that I could build the whole product myself. So if I had enough time, I could have coded up all of Solana. But I had to move faster than that. That's where you raise money, because you have this window to actually execute on. So when I hired somebody, it would be to give them a task that I'm working on. I'm working on it because it's important, so it's high priority. Since I'm already working on it, I know how to do it, so I can evaluate if they do a good job or not. And when I'm doing this stuff, I talk to the users who I'm like building this for, right? So I encourage all the kind of engineers to work openly in Discord with the validators. So when we release code that like falls apart or doesn't do something, the validators can literally yell at the engineer that wrote that line of code. And that iteration cycle can be faster and faster. So you need that like customer service energy, I think, as part of early product development. And I kind of never gave that up. I think it's important to always talk to your users. Because I still feel like, even though I do no longer have commit privileges, I haven't for a couple of years, on the main repo. I still feel like if there's a bug that somebody yells at me, I could go fix it. I can't force push anything anymore.
We just talk about what a founder CEO should do. What should a founder CEO not do?
Yeah, I think hiring well is probably the most important thing. And then to me, that starts with being able to build the whole product. So like, I think it sucks if there's only a single founder. You need like a couple co-founders, but usually there's like two that matter, that kind of really drive everything. And one of them needs to be able to build the whole thing. Like, I think it's a red flag if there's a team where a single, like one of the founders can't say, I can build the whole thing myself.
I was talking many years ago when I started my first company with the founder CEO of checkout.com, which is a sort of Stripe competitor. And he was actually telling me exactly that. He was like, you need to dominate your company. Is another way to say that, right? You need to understand everything from A to Z about your company, otherwise you're in trouble.
Yeah.
He was actually a solo founder. But
Solo's hard. It's too lonely. That's why I wouldn't recommend it. I think there's some people can do it, but it's a lonely job.
How do you find a great co-founder?
It's dumb luck.
I love the honesty.
Yeah.
Dumb luck happened a few times in your life.
I basically like quit my job, and my wife is like working and supporting us, and there's no way I'm going to just let that happen forever, right? So I gave myself 6 months, and that meant moving as fast as possible during that 6 months. So I got introduced to Raj through a friend of mine, and I was just like, you're just going to do all this. Like, it was just trust.
Without knowing each other.
Yeah, well, we met briefly before, and the person that connected us was like a really, really good friend of mine whose judgment I trusted. So that was a very if it wasn't for him introducing me, I would have ignored it, right? Like, and I pulled my friends in that I've worked with, played sports together with, so I trusted them. I trusted that I could redline them. This was kind of the reason I pulled my friends in. The specific friends that I pulled was because I knew that I could put a lot of pressure on them and they wouldn't crack. And the kind of pressure that you can't really ask out of an employee. Like, so the co-founders, you can put a lot of pressure on.
Because your wife says we have a child, you need to take care of the child, and then you choose between your job or your side hustle. Then you say, I go for a side hustle, and then she supports you for 6 months financially while you start. Amazing. You said, I didn't have this master plan or strategy, right? In the last 2-3 years, things happen, right? How did this meme coin thing started to happen and become so big on Solana? Started with the first big meme coin moment, if I remember well, was Bonk. How did that happen?
Yeah, again, I heard about Bonk when it launched. So it was truly out of that NFT community that was kind of, that was more so the NFTs kind of started more, I would say, it's not strategically, but it was at least reactive. Like, NFTs were blowing up on Ethereum, and people were asking us, why don't you guys have NFT support or whatever? And Bartosz and Jordan, these two engineers that really, really good product builders, basically built out the NFT standards in 48 hours and just launched them. And these are open source standards that anyone could use. And they did a good enough job where users, creators, could self-launch and do their own thing. That's always been our philosophy, is just unblock the creator, the dev, to just go do JavaScript. You don't have to mess with smart contracts, and go launch it on their own. And I think that created this culture of kind of people experimenting and launching NFTs, and a bunch of stuff broke, and there was congestion and all sorts of things. But the people were still there. So despite the FTX crash and all this other shit that happened, that's that same group of people that have had experience launching NFTs and stuff. They just decided to go launch Bonk. And I think because the users were there and the ecosystem was in this like relative, low point, it was starving for something new. And it was new and fun and kind of innocent. And it was like a fair launch. So it was just kind of took off. Like usually what's weird with crypto is that you have a bunch of kind of people that experiment and mess around with things. And they're just launching stuff for fun. And they get a hit. Something works and it catches virality and it becomes huge. And then people are like, I want to replicate that. And then it like spirals into like, oh, I see people are making money there. Not only am I going to replicate it, I'm going to like find a way to maximally extract dollars out of it. And that's when the meta dies. So the bonk was like in that early stage where people just having fun and it caught fire.
I have to ask, because as I said in the beginning of this podcast, when you were on your way here, you just tweeted fartcoin coded. You also tweeted, I just want to go on record that I was the first to call for a fartcoin strategic reserve. What's the deal with fartcoin?
I just think it's funny. It's just so stupid and dumb. Whatever.
That's what works. That's what works.
Exactly.
That's what people like. They want entertainment and stupidity, right?
Yeah. It's absurd, which makes it funny, and I think kind of like takes away. There's too many people that are way too serious in the space. So like to see something absurd succeed, it like makes the world more enjoyable.
We talked about Bonk. One of the really cool things about Bonk is that it was airdropped to people. It was airdropped to people who bought something called the Solana mobile phone, and the airdrop at some point covered the phone's cost.
Yeah,
which made people even more crazy about the whole meme coin thing. So the phone was essentially free, at least at a moment in time.
Yeah, the phone thing was like also kind of a. People made fun of it and called it a bull market idea.
Why? My question is, why would the company behind one of the fastest growing blockchain networks, Solana, launch a mobile phone?
Well, Labs is like a place to go like build companies and startups, and then they get spun out. Like Metaplex, the whole NFT standard, that was one. And they're founders that join Labs and then get hooked on something, and then they go build their own company. So that kind of happens all the time. But mobile was like my baby, and it's because I work at Qualcomm for such a long time, and it kind of, as soon as I started taking crypto seriously, my like kind of instinct was like, there is a whole stack for secure element and trusted display embedded in these chips that was developed like 10 years ago at this point, for making cryptographic signatures be as secure as a ledger. So all this technology is available in your phone. There's no reason not to surface it. It's just there's not enough demand or adoption or like whatever happening in the normal kind of financial industry to where crypto is accepted yet. So my thought was that there is an opportunity to make something better for users, so a more secure, kind of slicker signing experience, and an opportunity to make something for developers, which is, get rid of the 30% fees. You have a crypto-friendly app store. That was the thing. And like, the phone is like, this is the tricorder from Star Trek. This is the coolest piece of technology anyone's ever made. It's a whole computer in your hand that's connected to the entire world.
Which means also it's extremely hard to disrupt.
Yeah.
If you have one big winner in the Web 2 world, right, in the normal world, or two big winners, it's very hard to disrupt. So my question is, I am a Web 3 user and lover. I'm not a degen. I buy a new iPhone every 2 to 3 years.
So do I.
Exactly, you have an iPhone. Why should I, or why should you, and you say, this is your baby, right? Why should you not buy an iPhone this year and get ourselves a Solana Seeker, which you called the definitive Web3 mobile device?
So there's people that are like so plugged into the iPhone ecosystem that they can't switch. Part of that is because a lot of the, at least corporate security is all set up around iPhones. So you kind of, if you have like a job that has security, like managed software, you're probably stuck in an iPhone. Some support Android, but most of them actually recommend iPhones. But you can get a second device. That could be your NFT crypto phone, and you should have separation between those two because one is financial, one is not. But a large part of the world is not stuck in iPhone land. And 80% of the mobile sales actually are outside of the US. So only 20% of the sales happen in the US. So like the rest of the world is actually much more friendly. You're not like banned from dating apps if you have a green bubble. Like for most of the rest of the world, Android works well. And what I see is like right now there's this, like I think if you waited too long, Apple and Google will eventually add crypto support because I think kind of crypto adoption is inevitable. But until they add it natively, it's an opportunity to kind of create a wedge and onboard a bunch of crypto users to a new platform. And if right now Seeker is at like about 150,000 pre-orders, and that's very, like, it's a sizable developer ecosystem, but if it gets to like 1 million plus, then I think it's long-term sustainable. And then it would be hard to actually disrupt that.
So it's basically, if you're a crypto user and you want to have a much more secure phone, get that as a second phone where you do all your crypto stuff on, and you are much less likely to get hacked or to lose your crypto.
You should use it, for hot wallets especially. Like for cold storage, I would recommend you use a hardware wallet or like a combination of, if you really geek out on it, use 3 different hardware wallets, squads, multi-sig, then you have redundancy across a bunch of stuff. Cold storage is separate, right? Like you should always have a cold and hot separation, but for hot wallets, you're still under kind of this constant threat vector. Every time you sign something, it could be a malicious transaction. The App Store model, like why are apps more secure than like websites, is that there's moderation and curation, and that reduces a whole bunch of threat vectors. The single key phrase that is managed by the seed vault and not re-entered between all these applications, that's another way to reduce a whole bunch of threat vectors. So like,
you mentioned seed vault. The Solana Seeker has something called seed vault, which is powered by the crypto wallet Solflare. What the hell is seed vault, and what is Solflare doing in this equation?
So when you look at like mobile crypto apps right now, there's this weird tension between the app wanting to have great user experience and asking users to create an in-app wallet that's specific to the app. And your standard wallet, like Phantom or whatever, that's your central wallet, and then having to switch between the two. So having to cross applications, all this stuff. Or God forbid, people take the seed phrase that they use in Phantom and enter it in the app as well. So now they've risked their entire crypto portfolio that's in Phantom to this application. Don't do that. Do not share your seed phrase between apps or wallets. So the seed vault is this piece of tech that keeps that seed phrase secure, but the wallet can be shared between applications. So you're not dealing with this kind of thing. So the goal is to have like the first Saga device has this implemented. The UX is clunky, and there's a bunch of work that's done in Seeker to make it more like Apple Pay. So you literally, like when you sign, kind of looks and feels like Apple Pay.
What's the role of Solflare in that?
They're an awesome wallet company that the mobile guys thought was like the best to partner with. So they're providing the technology and kind of the deep integration.
What's the end goal with the Solana Mobile?
To disrupt the duopoly. So
that's a good one.
I think like that would be a massive success. A single participant can, like even a small one, can change the market equilibrium. So right now, Apple and Google are not competing hard enough to where they're like really trying to bring down costs for developers. They're in this, they're all sitting very comfortable taking a 30% fee. When people talk about crypto disrupting a bank that takes, 50 basis points, 30% is 3,000 basis points. It's a lot. I mean, the goal with mobile is to obviously to succeed as a phone company, and it's hard. And like when we sold 20,000 phones, I didn't see a path to sell to 1 million, but I saw a path to sell 150,000 units. And now that we sold 150,000 units, there is a path to sell to 1 million, but I don't know how the hell we're going to sell 10 million units. But you just do it one step at a time.
What does accelerating mean?
Increasing velocity.
I'm just thinking like the public here is like a normal people, right? I'm trying to get a lot of people who are non-crypto people, not like the crypto Twitter echo chamber. And we do that through YouTube, right? Where there's like, 2 billion people that we have potential reach. You see all these people talking about acceleration. Tech
It's
already,
moving
right?
faster. It's like making decisions faster, making those like being in that moment where you're talking to your spouse, should I start this company or not?
2 days later, boom.
2 days later, you just go for it, right? You sleep on it, the decision sits well with you, and you just go for it. And you execute and take action. So having agency and taking action is what I kind of think of it.
Why do the Solana folks talk and love acceleration so much?
Founding a company and building a product and launching it and getting users, it's a whole bunch of little decisions that people can just not take and delay. And avoiding like getting into that moment where you have to make that decision and making it and like taking action is necessary. You have to do this a bunch of times to actually ship. So we want people to go like take the first step, take the second step, and reduce that time between these decisions and just go for it.
One of the biggest arguments of the Solana detractors is that it's a casino chain, and that without meme coins, Solana is nothing. We just talked about Solana Mobile. What are some of the other big things being built on Solana that you're proud of and that have a solid traction?
Yeah, deepen. So this is like kind of again, people totally discounted this and thought it was dumb, and this is something that I focused on. I think uniquely out of most crypto ecosystems, I don't think anyone really paid attention to deepen, but maybe because again, I spent a career in embedded systems and hardware, it just seems so obvious. So Helium is a really prime example. There's also XNet, and both of these projects are working on building a decentralized 5G carrier. So it's could a 5G carrier even succeed is very much related to physics. So like 4G towers have like a 30-40 kilometer range. 5G towers have like a 300-400 meter range. So it's dramatically smaller. You need a much wider deployment of these things. And to go build a tower for like a big company like Verizon, it's a lot more work than for a user, like somebody at home that's like, I'm going to get this 5G cell, stick it in my apartment, just put the antenna out the window, now I'm providing coverage. So there is this like opportunity to crowdfund stuff in the hardware space that's really kind of hard for big companies to compete simply because they're slower. So as soon as I actually interviewed at Helium, ironically enough, before Dropbox, it was like one of the companies that I thought joining. Their CTO, Mark, was somebody that I worked with at Qualcomm for like a long time. Super brilliant guy. So it just made sense to me. And I spent a lot of time recruiting, like every blockchain is good for Deepin. This is like the thing is most of the blockchain work with Deepin happens outside of the blockchain. The only thing that the chain is tracking is like, each hotspot is an NFT. That's kind of how you think of it. So getting these folks on board just took them convincing that, A, you don't need to build your own chain. this is what I can go spend all my time on. And two, I think what you're doing is really freaking cool. That was it. And it's awesome to see, I think Helium's at like 300,000 users now. Like users that are using cellular network competing with Verizon basically. XNet is another one that's in that space. Another one is called Hive Mapper. So if you ever used Google Street View, like all the camera, kind of those cars that take pictures of all the roads and stuff and cameras, they actually built a decentralized version of that. I think they're at like 20 or 25% of the world's roads covered. And their fidelity, like their data is actually, in some cases, like 200 times faster than Google. So because they built these cameras that are designed for taking these photos, they give them to drivers that are, you know, the Uber driver, the whatever, the Dasher, whoever else. And there's all these apps exist globally now. It's really, really cool. They stick them on their scooter and their car, and they're constantly getting you an updated version of the street as they're doing their job and receiving tokens. And Google can't build that out. They can't build that fleet out, which is, I think, unique and cool. And like, if you paid cash for this is kind of, I think, the difference. Like, why Deepin works is if you just gave people money, the dollar value themselves would be kind of insignificant to excite somebody to do it. But getting a token is like, is more fun and kind of feels more invested into the ecosystem.
When people say that Solana is just for meme coins, do you have the same, I mean, it's kind of like this, do you have the same, like, it's the fun side of your job? You mentioned before.
Fighting FUD?
Yeah. This is the same fun for you, like, oh man, just another round of FUD.
Yeah, it's like...
Or is there a moment at which you get kind of tired of people, every time there is an opportunity to come, they just come back?
What is the coolest app on the iPhone for you that you can't live without?
Twitter and WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And Telegram.
How much, all those applications...
Probably spend more time on Twitter.
Yeah. Take all those applications combined with all the users, Apple makes almost $0 from that in the iOS App Store. The vast majority of the revenue comes from games. And the game started as literally the fart app, where you push a button and it makes a fart sound on the iOS. That was one of the first games. In fact, Steve Jobs had to comment, like, we don't need 20 fart apps in the iOS App Store. There were so many of them. But the $100 billion worth of, like, sales through iOS, most of that is mobile gaming and kind of silly, dumb, casual stuff. I think meme coins are kind of that silly, dumb, casual stuff that pays for the infrastructure, for Deepin, for everything else.
What is Solana's biggest achievement to date?
I think we're still processing more transactions than basically all the other major chains and L2s combined per day. It's pretty crazy. That, like, 5 years since launch, with everything being open source, our ideas all being totally open, anyone could go copy this thing. No one has really kind of been able to go fork Solana and compete with us.
What is Solana's biggest problem today?
Biggest problem? I'm always focused on, I have like a very narrow focus on growth. So I kind of think of one thing at a, like, it's hard for me. It's a very sprawling ecosystem, and there's nothing I can do to like make it move faster. But I can focus on just mobile and try to get that to succeed. So it's hard for me to say what's like the biggest single problem. It's almost like once I'm focused on mobile, I don't care about the other problems. But
if you don't care about the other problems, who care about them?
Somebody.
Somebody who reports to you?
No, somebody, like most people, like Labs is very small. It's like 40 people. Most of it is working on mobile, and there's Solana Ventures. So Labs itself is very tiny. I haven't been at the foundation for like 3 years. I'm not on the board. I suck at management. I don't want to manage. So
Love
like, yeah.
When did you realize that you suck at management?
I always kind of knew that. So, yeah. And I hired people that could deal with a bad manager. That was,
You told them, hey guys,
yeah.
I'm a bad manager, just be ready.
Just, if I'm doing your job, if I'm doing your work, if I'm patching your code, you're doing a bad job. That's
what you tell them.
Yeah.
Maybe I should tell that to people I work with, actually. If I'm doing your job, it's because you're doing a bad job.
Well, what's cool is that it's not me that even cares about this stuff, or even somebody that's at the foundation. Like the OR team, which built a proof of work coin on Solana, built what's probably going to be the replacement to Anchor, which is the toolkit that everybody uses in Solana. That wasn't built by the Foundation Labs; it was built by Armani at Backpack. So what you see is that like there are tons of problems. Development environment sucks. People are always complaining about like Anchor and version mismatch and all this other stuff, and like ton of problems that are like, all over the place. But there's somebody that cares about them, that's working on them, that doesn't report to me or to the foundation. This has, I think, been the biggest strength of the network.
What's the day that you can look back and say, we've made it with Solana?
I don't know. I still, I think as Mert said, if anyone that believes that Solana won it doesn't understand how technology or any of this stuff works. There's absolutely nothing given for free.
What's your personal definition of success?
When all the code that I wrote has been replaced.
How about life success?
Life?
What does success mean to you?
To me is when I'm second to worst guy on a team. That's when I'm succeeding. Is if I'm able to compete and grow and get better. So right now, being in the competition, in the running, to win it all, if there is a possibility to win it all, I think that is in itself success, and it's fun, and I don't know what else I could be working on beyond that.
Are you happy?
Yeah.
What makes you happy?
Again, I think it's the ability to compete and change and improve. I'm happy being a crappy surfer if I can go and surf every day and get better. It's I don't need to be the best surfer and then not get any joy of getting better, right?
Do you still surf? Do you still do some sport?
Yeah, snowboarding, cycling, weightlifting are kind of my three major ones. Surfing is rough. SF, Ocean Beach is very fast break. So I've been out there a couple times, but I'm old now. I get slammed into the ground, and I'm this is this is more dangerous than I want it to be.
The washing machine.
Yeah, that I don't mind. Getting short, 2 foot shore break, and catching a fast wave and just being too slow or too fast and just getting slammed right into the sand. That to me is the dangerous part.
What's the worst advice you've ever received?
Shit, I don't remember. I don't know.
Too many bad advices?
Yeah.
Or too many good advices?
I'm bad at listening, I think. That's why I don't know if I'm a bad listener. I don't know if I've gotten that much good or bad advice.
How do you deal with your wife if you're bad at listening? She abandoned. She's
I only there's a few people that I listen to.
How do you want to be remembered?
Just as an engineer. I don't need any accolades or anything.
What's something you believe in that most people would not agree with?
I think the singularity is going to be really slow to get here. I think people or I don't know if this is most, there's too many people that believe that we're on the cusp of huge meteoric, unbelievable growth of science and everything else. I think it's going to be slow and a grind.
Why? Why do you think people think it's going to be so fast, and why do you think it's going to be slow?
Because they see the progress of AI and they think that it's very rapid. What I actually see is like how slow it is to get the exponential rate. Like you need the cost of training and everything else is going up quadratically, but hardware is only improving 2x. So you kind of have these two things fighting each other. And I think it's also kind of part of, it's still exponential, it's just in a much longer timeline. And this is part of just human growth, is like the overhead of us talking to each other and communicating is quadratic.
This is a very practical approach again to, you can think like technology goes extremely fast, but humans are humans.
Yeah.
It slows down the whole thing, right?
But this is also just true of AI, and like it's true of simulating like atoms and all the really, really hard, gnarly problems where you have a lot of like a huge dynamic system. It's just really, really hard to simulate, and it's not, and you don't get twice as much out of it with twice as much hardware. So I think people are overly optimistic. So that could be one. Another one, I think, which means I don't think we're going to live forever. And I'm fine with that. There's like also this cult of like living forever. I think that's still probably quite far away. And for that reason too, I think aliens are pretty far away. The kind of the Fermi paradox, I don't think we'll see them, and definitely not in my lifetime.
You think they exist?
If they do, they're so far away that the probability of us like connecting is virtually zero.
The rational approach would be, if we exist, probably something else exists. But if you listen to Elon, he's actually saying there's zero proof that any alien exists, right?
Well, the probability of everything going right and right at around the same time as us going right for us, that's zero. Like, and it increases as you like look at the larger and larger universe and radius. But what does it matter to us if there's like intelligent life in another galaxy or on the other side of the Milky Way even? It's just too far away that like we'll never talk to each other, at least not in like any feasible lifetime. Like,
and we have enough problems to solve on this planet already.
I'm also very optimistic. I think we live in the best time possible. And like things are definitely getting better. They're absolutely better now, like almost on everything than 20 years ago, like across the board.
Thank you so much, Anatoly.
For sure.
That was awesome. Thank you for being so chill, laughing a lot. That was amazing. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Wow, that was who? He was the Solana co-founder. I find it so difficult to tell his name. Trust me, he's like Anatoly Yakovenko. I think I'll call him Yakovenko. That's better. Anatoly. That's difficult to say. So I think it was a very, very interesting video. The reason I got into it is like I wanted you guys to get introduced to the fact that there is basically all these things that are there behind the scenes which we don't know, which we don't understand, and probably we are lagging much beyond these levels that all these people have already achieved. So I also come from a background where basically for me the understanding about any cryptocurrency, the technology, the coding languages, or any blockchain or any of these things like totally feels alien for me, like he was mentioning. So I'm not going to talk about probabilities and all those mathematical things for sure. All I'm trying to say is there is definitely so many things beyond what we are actually trying to understand. So in these live streams and you guys join, I'm sure you get to learn so many things that are there every day, and it's not easy as individuals for us to grab these things over a period of time. For me, also as an individual, my retention or the grabbing or the grabbing capacity is limited, because we all know that at one point in time, at some level, we can catch few things, and few things will still be alien for us. So what's important is, like, all we're trying to do is understand what these things are all about. So we've been talking about what Solana project is, investing into Solana token and all of that. But what it actually means, or what it actually is, what something we were watching this, and there is this co-founder Anatoly Yakovenko. I'll call him Yakovenko, okay? YV, or YV is, I think it's a better name, YV. So he was in the, this video, of course. And definitely, like in his stream, in his video, he did mention, for any layman to understand what Solana is all about, is basically a payment solution. So if you do not want any governments to be interfering into your hard-earned money, or being taxed for whatever reasons and all of that, then Solana helps you in terms of achieving that goal or whatever you have in your mind. So I think this is what the Solana developers are doing, and this is what the Solana developers have built in mind. Like, apart from this, obviously there are payment gateway solutions that we kind of see on these technologies, on these blockchain technologies. Also, we kind of see a lot of games that get built on it, the transaction speeds and things like that. So this is what all these projects are all about. And we also saw that basically, if there is something which can outperform even Solana, is SUI. So majorly, more or less, all the type of projects are trying to help and are trying to basically make our day-to-day works easy. So when we lived in this traditional world, we knew that we had banking systems that were doing these jobs for all of us. So probably there were people behind the scenes whom we didn't even knew, who were existing, or even doing these things for all of us. I'm sure all of us would have gone to a bank at some point in time, asked the cashier at the counter to kind of validate the transaction and, get your money transferred to, say, XYZ person's account. I'm sure all of us has done that, and all of us will continue to do that. But did we actually realize who are these people behind the scenes that are actually taking care of this? I'm sure these banks, which they use these softwares, the ledgers that they use, what are they using it on? What is the software that they are using on? What is that, thing which is actually helping in making sure that the amount which is getting deducted from your account is actually in a right way getting credited, or, getting into somebody else's account. So the proof of that getting transferred, and every bit of money that is flowing from here to there, everything that's happening is getting recorded somewhere. So all this while we didn't really realize what's happening on that front. Now we realize this, that there is somebody behind the scenes who is doing all these things, and all these technologies, all these transactions that get validated and things like that that happens on the blockchain technology are what we are looking into. So probably I might say that whatever was behind the scenes is now in front of us. So payment solutions, you see, I'm sure you might have come across platforms like Amazon, or maybe eBay, or maybe so many different platforms, Shopify and all that. So whenever you want to do cross-border e-commerce business, how are you able to do that? You're able to do it basis the transaction that you're able to do here. Perhaps you're reaching out the borders of other countries and advertising yourself on all the platforms using all the, softwares out there like Google, Facebook, Instagram, whatnot for, putting your ads out there to the people to show that there's something called, say, XYZ company existing and is selling so and so product. But ultimately somebody coming on your platform after seeing that particular ad or whatever, and they are actually buying your product or your service, and then they make a payment. So how does that payment come to you? How does that payment actually go through? So these are the things that we need to actually brainstorm and think, how is this actually happening? So this is where these blockchain technologies come into picture. This is where all these things lie. This is where everything is dependent. So what we talk about as projects, tokens, currencies, this, that is nothing but all these scenes behind which we don't really understand on a day-to-day basis. Perhaps you sitting in a different country and transacting is a different thing, and then you don't really realize there might be people behind the scenes who are actually taking care of your transaction. So who are these people? Who are these developers? Who are these guys who are actually helping make that transaction successful? So, for example, if you're sitting in India and you want to do a project and you want to make a transaction in Dubai. So if there is something that's getting validated or getting transferred or getting any kind of validation out there, who is doing that? These are none but these technologies or the people behind these projects who are actually helping us out in terms of making sure that, our transactions go successfully, our businesses run successfully. So if we say these people are scammers, okay, then trust me, I'm going to tell you that our life without them is just useless, because everything that we do on a day-to-day basis right now, right away, because the world is just moving towards a digital, digital way of doing things, digital currencies, digital transactions and everything. So what are these all getting built on? How are these getting built on? Who is developing it? Who are the developers behind it? So we are so much dependent on these guys. Probably they are not dependent on us as much as we are dependent on them, because our day-to-day, whatever we earn as bread, breadwinning or whatever we do, or we do the living that we do, is totally dependent on these kind of things that are very, very crucial for our business to run. While they goes hand in hand, and I don't say they are not dependent on us. Yes, they are also dependent on us, because obviously if we run the businesses successfully, they are going to at the same time give us the service that we need. And at the same time, on the whole, if you talk about from the consumer point of view, we are consuming it, at the same time we are using this. So there's so much that is, associated with it. And I think this was one of the beautiful videos that I've come across, and definitely listening from the horse's mouth is it's a totally different feeling altogether, right? So the guy was like really very simple, nice, very, good figure, as in, very humorous guy with good sense of humor and things like that. And obviously coming from that background, which he did share about his family background and his personal background, I think whatever decision he's made has so far done really well. And I think that's what we require, right? We require the right kind of decision at the right time. So it happens the same in the crypto zone. It happens same in the crypto world too, where we basically come across such kind of thing where making the right decision at the right time is so important and crucial for us. The one opportunity we lose is what we basically lose out on everything. That's what I totally feel. Wow, what a move, guys. Look at that. This is what I call it as fair value gap, guys. I know while talking I suddenly moved to this, but this total movement here, this zone from this zone, like I can tell you, right, just a sec. Let me draw the horizontal line. See, this to this, Oh my God, look at that. So this is exactly how fair value gaps look like when, there's like huge institutional buying, or the price keeps moving up to that level, then it's, comes back at the same level. Let's just try to add that indicator and see if that's, giving us some kind of information. So we do have the fair value gap indicator, which is by the Lux algo, which we can put, or maybe we can also use the smart money concepts. Let's just put this one. This is again by Lux algo, and see what we are able to derive. You can see there was this fair value gap that is clearly indicating here, between this level, this level, this level, and this level. So we have so at this level we had one fair value gap, which is clear. That's a bearish fair value. There's also a bullish fair value gap. Let me try to put a middle line if this one has it. I do want to put somehow I don't find it anyways. Wow, look at that. Let me see in this particular I think I'm going to remove this one. Let's just add the Fibonacci retracement and see. So it has taken it from this low to that high and plotted the points already. So 0.382. So because it was an uptrend, that's a different story altogether. We need to change this to highest to lowest, guys. I think that's what we need to do right now, because anyways this point has anyways passed. So I'm going to draw it from here to here. So from the highest point to this point, you see at 0.786%, while it was going down 0.618%, which is like 61.8% or 78.6%, it didn't retrace back. So the clear indication is obviously that the price is further going down, and from here at this level, which is a zero level, it's kind of going and tracing back normally. So Fibonacci retracement basically is not successful in its own way. We always have to cross verify this with something else, some other indicator, to make sure we are on the right path. Now here I'm going to add my RSI to make sure to understand where my position stands at. So on the smaller time frame, you can see it has already reached 30.89, but if I try to increase the larger time frame, it's still at 40.32, which is not an oversold territory right now, and we are not in that position at the moment. So 41.65 on 30 minutes time frame, 15 minutes, it's 40.46. So as the time frame decreases, the more closer it is towards the oversold. You can see still on the 15 minutes time frame also is the same thing. Here you see 5 minutes, it's totally changed to 34.7. Then on the 3 minutes time frame, it's almost 27.75. On 1 minute time frame, it's 30.70. So you have to be careful whenever you're getting into a position to make sure that you check the RSI too on all the time frames to make sure it's in the oversold territory, because what might seem like on the Fibonacci, yes, I agree that after reaching 0.7, 0.6, basically the price retracement is slightly difficult to achieve, but we know for a fact that it's going to go up. If in case any of these other indicators are indicating something else, so we have to be a little sure on that aspect of it and then maybe move ahead on it. So always try to measure this with the different time zones that you have. It's very important. Different time frames are very, very important and crucial for us. So it's important you understand this aspect of it. So guys, I'm going to come back and talk more about all these things and whatever is happening. We'll do a bit of more analysis. We'll also see maybe some of the cryptos, I think, and also I'll be playing some other videos because we have 2 more hours to go. So how do you take a successful trade? How does, a successful trade happens, and what are its so when we change the time frames, you see everything changes out here. So anytime for us, the most crucial points for the price to retrace is anywhere between 0.5 to 0.6 and 0.786, which is very, very important. So if the price has to retrace, whether it was in an uptrend or a downtrend, the price will be retracing more or less from these 2 points only. And if it is not, then it is bound to go down. But that is still not the confirmation when we are using independently Fibonacci. We need to cross verify this with some other, indicators too, like maybe add your RSI divergence, or add your volume indicator, and also cross verify it with your MACD too. And The volume indicator can give you clearly if there are like lot of volume spikes, red volume spikes. It clearly indicates that the prices are going down. The selling pressure is very high. So that is very much clear. Otherwise, you need to check RSI, and RSI not just on one time frame but on all the time frames, because different time frames might show you different oversold territories. So just now we saw that 28, 30, 40 on different time frames. It might not give you the accurate picture that you want. So once you're confirmed on the Fibonacci, just cross verify it on the all time frames, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30, 45 minutes, and if possible 1 hour also, and check whether you have already reached the oversold territory or not. And if you have, that makes your ideal position to again for the price to take an upward trend from where it is going. So right now I have drawn support and resistance levels out here. This being my resistance, this being my support, so let's just see what will happen in the coming few minutes. Okay guys, I'm taking a small break, and while you guys are watching this, I will catch with you in a couple of minutes. Stay tuned. So guys, I'm back. So the support and resistance that we created, I think that's basically in the sideways direction that it is working. Most of them are in negative. XRP 0.53, BNB also 0.28, which is very minimal actually. Markets are not responding that great, honestly speaking. The markets are still neutral. Let's just see what this of news is. Bitcoin and other major cryptocurrencies have struggled to provide investors with a clear directional signal, and amid a historical bearish June, further deepening the slump as inflows of spot Bitcoin ETFs have slowed. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies weak in June. According to data published by 10x Research, June is generally a mixed or negative month for Bitcoin. Over the past 10 years, BTC's average return this month was recorded as 1.9%, with half of them being positive and half of them negative months. Ethereum has performed less well. It has only risen in the two of the last 7 Junes, with an average decline of 11.7%. XRP has performed even worse, while Solana has remained relatively more resilient. This week outlook is also reflected in the waning interest in spot Bitcoin ETFs traded in the US, according to SOSO value data. The ETF saw net inflows on only 2 of the last 5 trading days. ETF inflows remained at 87 million on Wednesday, a sharp drop from Tuesday's 387 million. Inflows into Ethereum's ETFs also fell to 57 million, the lowest since May. The weakening pace of institutional inflows suggests that we are losing momentum and forces us to remain cautious about the near-term outlook, said Valentin Forney, chief research analyst at BRN. However, some analysts are more optimistic. Despite the seasonal lull, structurally positive around remains. BTC and ETH supply growth rates are now lagging behind global money supply growth, increasing the likelihood of positive price action in the long term. New treasury buyers are absorbing supply, QCP supply said. The company also pointed out the relative strength of Ethereum, noting that the ETH BTC ratio is trading near recent highs. This is not investment advice. Okay. Dow, S&P, Nasdaq open higher after Trump and Z call. Stocks opened higher on Thursday after reports that US President Donald Trump and Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping had a phone call. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, which snapped its latest 5-day winning streak on June 4th, opened in the green, but after 40 minutes of trading turned slightly negative. While the trading showed a lack of upbeat momentum, enthusiasm on Wall Street reflected the news that Trump and Xi talked over the phone. The call, reported by Xinhua, comes just days after Trump claimed China violated a recently agreed trade agreement. Stock markets rallied in April after US-China trade talks in Switzerland. As stocks edged higher following this latest move, BTC hovered just above $105K. While Wall Street is eyeing gains that could see major US indexes clock out another winning week, worries around global economic growth persist. Latest to add to these overall downbeat mood is the ADP report on private sector hiring growth. On Thursday, the Labor Department Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that weekly jobless claims rose for the second consecutive week. The number of Americans filing for the unemployment benefits increased by 8,000 to 247,000, the highest weekly jump since October 2024. The figure came in above economist expectations of 237 new claims. In parallel, US worker productivity fell in the first quarter of 2025, driving unit labor cost up 6.6% amid persistent tariff uncertainty. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, non-farm productivity declined at an annualized rate of 1.5% during Q1. Also notable on the day was the European Central Bank's decision to cut interest rates by 25 basis points, bringing its deposit facility rate to 2%. This marks the ECB's 7th consecutive rate cut, down from the peak of 4% in mid-2023. The ECB's move follows Eurozone inflation data showing a decline to 1.9% in May, below the bank's 2% target. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has recently criticized Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell for the Fed's decision not to cut interest rates. Ongoing uncertainty around tariffs and monetary policy continues to shape investor sentiment in risk asset markets. So we need to check this out. Not much happening on that front. Oh, it's broken the support level. So it's now. We need to draw this all over again because it's created a new support and resistance here. Let's just see if the trend reversal will happen. So price has anyways reached 0.786, which is 78.6% of it, which means if it has to go further down, it will either go down this level, which will still be a downward trend that we can expect, or if it shoots above 0.786, then it might take an upward trend. So there's selling pressure out there. The buyers are getting weak. Although the candle which is coming very strong is not able to withhold that pressure which they are receiving it. So I think that's what is happening there. So if the price has to retrace, it has to retrace anywhere between 0.7 to 0.618. Otherwise, it will be taking a opposite direction altogether. I'm so sorry, guys. So sorry.
कभी भला
So in if the price surpasses 0.618 on the Fibonacci, chances are it will retrace and it will be going up. So guys, here on the Fibonacci, we can see it has crossed the 0.618 level. So most probably, if the buying pressure continues, then it will continue to see an uptrend. But if the price is not going to basically, it's not going to, if it goes down below, then probably we might see that the price is not able to retrace back to its normal level. So let's just wait and see how it goes for it. And the candles out here indicate they are very strong enough, but if the buying pressure continues to be very strong, then we might see an upward trend out here. It looks like the buying pressure is strong. The candle indicates it. But the increasing wick is clearly indicating that the sellers are trying to overpower the buyers. while we continue to watch the markets as they are, let's play a small video to kind of see if we have something interesting that we can basically cover. I think this interview is basically a good one. Some piece of useful information that we can see together.
I've read through a decade of your research to figure out what the best investment is, so anyone can get rich in the future. And you've predicted that this will grow by at least 5,000%.
Yes, and my conviction is so high because of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Is there a woman on planet Earth that manages more money from an investing capacity than you?
Maybe not. I'm overseeing nearly $30 billion.
Okay, so I might have $500. What should I be doing with that?
So this is all you need to know.
Kathy Wood built a multi-billion-dollar fund by spotting trends before anyone else.
And now, with over 40 years of market insight, she's showing you how and where to invest too.
AI is the biggest technological disruption in history. And this incredible rate of change is making people uncomfortable. But if you are on the right side of change, investment opportunities and job opportunities are going to be enormous. But people don't know what to do. For example, many people think Apple is a very safe investment. It's probably going to be disrupted by artificial intelligence. But yet, Tesla is going to be the biggest.
You've invested just over $2 billion in Tesla?
Yeah, because Tesla is the largest AI project on Earth. So AI has to be a top priority, not an afterthought.
So I've got questions. What's your top 10 public stocks that anybody can invest in? What's the philosophy towards investing that will make one rich over time? And then if I want to invest in AI, how should I be investing my money?
According to our research, these investments will go up more than tenfold in the next 5 to 10 years and create incredible opportunities for investors. So number one,
this has always blown my mind a little bit. 53% of you that listen to this show regularly haven't yet subscribed to this show. So could I ask you for a favor before we start? If you like the show and you like what we do here and you want to support us, the free, simple way that you can do just that is by hitting the subscribe button. And my commitment to you is if you do that, then I'll do everything in my power, me and my team, to make sure that this show is better for you every single week. We'll listen to your feedback, we'll find the guests that you want me to speak to, and we'll continue to do what we do. Thank you so much. Kathy Wood, is there a woman on planet Earth that manages more money from an investing capacity than you?
well, there's probably not someone overseeing, yes, nearly $30 billion. But I know there are teams out there, including women, that manage maybe a lot more than that.
What is it that you do?
Invest in companies that are technologically enabled and that are going to transform the world as we know it. Robotics, energy storage, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and multi-omic sequencing in the life science space. The last is the most complicated.
And how long have you been an investor?
I started when I was 20 years old at a company called Capital Group. And I was introduced to the firm by Art Laffer. Now, Art Laffer, he's one of the most important economists of our time. He created something called the Laffer curve. He's advised most presidents since President Nixon, and he's advising President Trump as well.
And how is these 5 big innovation platforms that you speak of, how is that going to have an impact on the average person's life? Like, why do they need to know this stuff? How is it going to change their decision-making and change their career? And
now that the world is moving so quickly into this new world, and Bitcoin has become so successful an investment, many people are trying to figure out, okay, how do I get involved with the new world? And when I say get on the right side of change, we think there's going to be a lot of disruption to the traditional world order. And when I say that in terms of people understanding what I mean, I think many people think Apple is a very safe investment because huge hoard of cash, very successful smartphone, number one market share of smartphones in terms of profitability by far. And yet we can tell you, and this is one of what's called the Mag 6 that led the stock market over the last few years.
The top 6 stocks.
The top 6 stocks, the market was very narrowly focused on this ilk of stock. And we were saying, you know what? Apple is probably going to be disrupted by artificial intelligence. And one of the reasons we started asking questions very early is, what is the ultimate mobile device? Ultimately, it's going to be an autonomous vehicle. Apple should have been all over that, and they were trying, and we saw one management turnover after another. This is an AI project, and what we were learning as they were turning that team over time and again is they weren't getting AI right. They were not positioning correctly.
You're concerned for Apple?
I think Apple, it has so much cash. It has such a loyal customer base. It will be fine, but maybe its revenue growth has slowed to almost nothing. And so maybe it'll be a mature cash cow. That's not what we do. We invest in technologically enabled disruptive innovation. AI is the biggest technological disruption in history. And if they're not going to get it right, we're not going to be there.
So if I want to invest in AI, if I agree with you, Kathy, and I say, I think you're right, that AI is the biggest technological wave coming into shore and the biggest opportunity, how should I be investing my money? In your view, how are you investing your money to capitalize on AI?
Many people used to invest in AI through one stock. That was NVIDIA. That was the check the box. I own the GPU, the chip manufacturer, which is the most important chip manufacturer in the AI age. And its valuation, meaning its price relative to earnings, really got up to very heady levels. And we were saying at the time, well, if NVIDIA's valuation is correct, there are going to be a lot of other winners. Who are they? Well, our largest position in the flagship strategy, ARKK, is Tesla. And as we were trying to help people understand why we were swapping away from NVIDIA to stocks like Tesla and Palantir, which is a software provider, we were trying to explain that this new world around AI is going to happen very quickly. And Tesla is the largest AI project on Earth. I posted that on X, and Elon liked it, so it must be true. But it is true if our research is correct. We believe that the entire ecosystem associated with autonomous taxi networks is going to be worth $8 to $10 trillion in terms of revenue generation in the next 5 to 10 years. And if you want to put that in context, the entire GDP of the world today is about 130 trillion. So 10 trillion is going to move the needle.
Tesla are launching their first cyber taxi, I believe, in Austin in June, potentially?
Yes. So the cyber cabs will launch next year, but in Austin in June, those will be Model Ys. And I'm looking to buy another Model Y because it will, in effect, be a cyber cab. Okay. And if I chose to, I could have my Model Y drive me to work and then let it out for the day and earn money on it, have it pick me up at the end of the night. And some people will do that. And Tesla will provide the platform for that.
I think a lot of people don't realize just how much of the economy is about driving.
Yes.
So taxis, deliveries,
yes,
all these kinds of things. It's a huge, is it the single, I think it's the single biggest employer in the world.
Yes, transportation right? Broadly defined, yes. And it's not just on the ground, of course. As we've studied autonomous taxis moving forward, we believe the cost of transportation will come down fairly dramatically. So in the US today, an Uber costs roughly $2 to $4 per mile. At scale, now this may not be for 5 to 10 years, but this is the direction that Tesla certainly is headed. We believe that Tesla will be able to offer a service for 25 cents per mile. And because of that, we think there will be much more congestion in the roads. When you cut the price of something, you get more of it.
Yeah.
And that led us into the air. And so we've been studying eVTOLs.
What's an eVTOL?
eVTOL is an electric vehicle takeoff and landing.
Like a drone?
A drone, but for people.
Yeah.
So we own Archer in our portfolio. And of course, AI is a part of this new world as well. And it's a part of the defense world as well, as we are trying to save our soldiers and move out there with autonomous drones. So autonomous mobility on the ground, in the skies, ultimately on the water.
So Tesla.
So that's one big, we think that's going to be the biggest in the short term in terms of revenue generation, the biggest application of AI. We think the most profound application of AI is going to be in healthcare. Because of AI, and this is already beginning to happen, we are able to diagnose cancer with a blood test in stage 1. Think about that. If you discover cancer in stage 1, you can save most people, right? And maybe even before stage 1. Why? This is the convergence of sequencing technologies. So DNA, RNA, protein sequencing technologies. And then the third technology that is breakthrough and already making a difference is CRISPR gene editing. The convergence of those 3 technologies is beginning to cure disease. So a company called CRISPR Therapeutics, which is one of the largest in our ARKG fund and in the top 10 in our ARKK fund, has developed a therapy to cure sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia. Both of those are blood-related diseases, with one treatment. Think about that. Now, the preconditioning for that is gruesome. It involves, it's almost like chemotherapy, which is going to change. But nonetheless, there's huge demand for it because, these people go to the emergency room 10 to 20 times per year for blood transfusions to save their lives. Of course, they're going to go through a tough regimen. They want to live a more normal life. So it's already generating revenue. Both of those are already generating revenue for CRISPR Therapeutics and a company called Vertex.
So there's 3 or 4 different companies you've mentioned here. Tesla, the other one was Archer.
Archer is the eVTOL company, yes.
Which is your flying cars, basically your drone cars.
Yeah.
And CRISPR and Tesla. So if I start with Tesla, you were bullish on Tesla. You were making big predictions about Tesla before pretty much anyone else out there. I think in 2015. Mm-hmm. And at the time in 2015, you said that you believed the stock would get above 4,000, roughly.
Right, on the old stock.
Yeah, before the stock split.
Yes.
And you were right by some significant margin. I think you predicted it would be 4,000 before the stock splits. And I think at its peak, that equates to about 18,000, maybe 12,000 at its peak.
Yes, well,
in that region.
We were right about 2 early years, or Tesla got to where we believed it would go 2 years before most expected. In 2018 and 19, many people, as Elon was discussing and describing production hell for the Model 3, many people thought the company would go bankrupt. And yet we knew that if Elon Musk could create a reusable rocket that could land on a barge in the water, he would be able to figure out how to produce at scale, the Model 3. That was, to us, a simple conclusion. Now, as in hindsight, as we're learning from Tesla, production hell, and they themselves were worried. That's why Elon slept on the floor in the production factory and just became maniacally involved, which is how he works. So yes, and now our prediction, the stock is, I'm not going to be exactly right on this, $270, $280. Our prediction in 5 years is 2,600, and 90% of that valuation comes not from the electric vehicle, but from this robotaxi platform. Because the electric car, if you think about it, is, a one-shot sale. Sell and hope they come back when they're replacing their car.
This essentially means that we'll be driving cars that we can click a button and then it becomes an autonomous taxi. So I go on holiday, I have my Tesla car at my house. When I go on holiday, the car turns into a taxi and starts chauffeuring people around. It makes me money. But also, from the consumer's perspective, that are trying to hail a taxi, at any point I can go on my Tesla app, press a button, a autonomous car comes to me with no one driving it, and it takes me to my destination with no driver at all.
Right.
And then the recurring revenue model, I believe, is you subscribe.
It probably could. It could be you could subscribe to the network, or they could, maybe it could be either or, subscription or a la carte if you don't think you're going to use it that much. So now, when I'm here in the UK and Europe, many people do not believe what you just said, and they don't. Because your regulators have not allowed FSD here. I think they might, somewhere in Europe, I think they're beginning to consider it. Maybe even in the UK here, they are considering it. In St. Petersburg, Florida, where we're based, I can go from my house to anywhere, and flawlessly, the car will take me there. Now, we still have to sit in the driver's seat for now, but in June, or soon thereafter, when they turn the system on, if regulators permit, right now we're state by state, I think that's going to change so that we'll have federal regulation so that this can happen a lot faster. One other thing about Tesla, though, in that $2,600 number, we do not include much for humanoid robots. Now, this is happening faster than we thought. And the reason it's happening faster is humanoid robots, they are the convergence of the same three technologies or innovation platforms as robotaxis. Robotics, so actuators and so forth, getting them to work. Energy storage, battery operated, and AI. So Tesla's way ahead of the game on humanoid robots, and yet we have very little. Now, Elon thinks that the humanoid robot business is going to dwarf the robotaxi business. And we think he's right, but longer term. So as I mentioned, we expect all in around the world, including China, not just Tesla, but the entire ecosystem, an $8 to $10 trillion market in the next 5 to 10 years. For humanoid robots, we expect a $26 trillion revenue market. Now, that's going to be a little further along. Robotaxis will happen faster, but it may not be as distant as we were once thinking.
For anyone that doesn't know, humanoid robots are basically robots that we'll have in our home and at work. So there was a video that I think Elon retweeted the other day showing one of the humanoid robots dancing.
Dancing, yes.
Was that real? I was looking at that video thinking, surely that's not real. But he confirmed, I believe, that it was real.
Yes. Now, when we went to the Cybercab event, there were some humanoid robots dancing there, but they were tethered and they were remotely controlled.
Yeah.
Now, Cybercab, I think, was...
about a year ago.
Yes, maybe. So since then, they've been able to untether them. And I do believe that that dancing robot was not tethered and not remotely controlled.
it was quite shocking to see a robot doing that, because if a robot can have that dexterity and mobility, and then you overlay that with the AI technologies that are accelerating rapidly, it begs the question. And the question is quite clear, which is, what about humans?
Yes. And just to put a finer, note on this, Elon will not be satisfied until these robots can thread a needle. So that's where we're going.
What does that mean for humans?
So, the history of technology is that it has been a net job creator throughout history. But humanoid robots are getting awfully close to what we do, right? So it's a good question. I think creativity is a big part of that, ingenuity and creativity. And, I think there's going to be a lot of new inventions in the future. So let's see what those are. But even today, there's something called vibe coding. Have you heard of it? Okay. Because we've moved into the world of natural language programming.
What is vibe coding for someone that doesn't know?
Vibe coding means you know a natural language. We all know a natural language. Ours is English for the most part, but it could be any language. We're going to be able to go to ChatGPT, or especially now they just launched, I think last week, something called Codex, Replit, and Anthropic's fantastic for programming. And we'll say, this is what I'm attempting to do in English language. And I've seen demos of this just internally. We're going to replace some of our software that we're buying from outsiders and customize it for us, because, we don't have to buy off the shelf anymore. One size fits all. I think there's going to be a lot more customization and personalization and creativity explosion here. It's interesting that this is happening when the demographic profile of the developed world is as it is. We have a very low unemployment rate in the US. I know the unemployment rates in Europe and the UK have been dropping to much lower levels than where they were stuck for years. I remember thinking, wow, double digits. We have a demographic issue. I mean, if you watch what Elon Musk worries about the most, he worries about the population implosion, because collapse in population in the developed world, because we're not producing children above the fertility rate. We are setting up for a shrinkage. With China is going there, Japan is going there, and so we're going to need productivity to help us if we can't find human beings.
Okay, so you're saying that the robotics and AI could actually fill the gap that we lose in terms of productivity, because our society is going to be like an inverted pyramid. It's going to be more elderly people and less young people.
Yes.
So the robots are going to.
Yes, absolutely. Productivity is going to be essential. So as we're looking at real growth ahead, and when you think about real growth, you should be thinking, okay, somebody's benefiting from this. And I'm going to set up the number here by describing what has happened historically. If you look from 1500 to 1900, and you try and figure out what real GDP growth was back then, real economic growth, as best as Brett Winton, our chief futurist, in consultation with academics, can determine, it was roughly 0.6% per year. And then we had the Industrial Revolution. We had the internal combustion engine, telephone, electricity. And for the past 125 years, real GDP growth has been 3%. And most living standards have gone up over time. Some more than others, I know that's a debate, but most have gone up. As we look forward, based on the 5 innovation platforms around which we have centered our research and investing, if we're right, real GDP growth in the next 5 years could accelerate to 7.3%. And that gives you a sense of the economic activity, wealth generation out there. And when we are presenting to investors, we are actually presenting to them not only because they're investors, but because they have children or grandchildren who need to adapt to this new world. And our mantra in giving away our research, which we do, is get on the right side of change. We also do podcasts. We do a lot of outreach because we think this is a very important moment in time. Seize the moment, grab hold of these new technologies, because that growth rate is more than twice where we've been. And if you are on the right side of change, we think the opportunities are going to be enormous. Investment opportunities and job opportunities.
Yeah, I feel like I can't figure out how the displacement rate meets the creation rate. So the destruction rate of current jobs will meet the creation rate of new jobs, because many of these new jobs, I guess there's some of them we can't predict yet, I understand that, but even the ones that we can't predict yet would need to be inherently human, i.e. need the skills of a human for them to be occupied by humans. So what category of stuff is that? Like my girlfriend's a breathwork practitioner. She's upstairs now with 10 women and she's teaching them breathwork.
Okay.
So she's fine.
Yeah.
Like, because they're doing that in person, whatever. She's fine.
Well, and maybe she's not if people decide
to do it on ChatGPT.
Yeah, on ChatGPT. But if they want to be with a group of women,
yeah,
and, learn from an expert whom they respect, there's as much the social experience. That's going to become more important. Relationships are going to become more important. Many people in our business, I think, are going to be out of jobs because the business has become really nothing. I shouldn't be this disrespectful, and it's not quite right, but at all. But so many are just hugging benchmarks, whether it's S&P 500 or MSCI World or the NASDAQ, that a machine can do that. A machine can do that easily. And that is what passive investing is machines doing it. I think in order to earn a place in the new world, you've got to add a lot of value, more value than a machine can. So in our case, we're saying, okay, well, our stocks are not in those benchmarks. And therefore, we are doing original research, trying to figure out who they are and where they are, these companies that are going to transform the world.
Why can't AI replace what you're doing in terms of...
And we think about that all the time. So AI can use pattern recognition. It's all based on history, right? It can use pattern recognition, maybe, to do what we're doing. What are the 3 characteristics that define an innovation platform for us? The most important one is they follow something called Wright's Law, which measures the learning curve, how fast the costs are going to decline with this new technology. Technology is deflationary. Costs fall over time, and they're passed through into lower prices or better performance, one or the other. That is the most important. A machine can figure that out, I'm sure. But asking the questions are going to be important. Like, there wasn't, before 2014 when we started ARC, much on autonomous mobility or eVTOLs, or for that matter, AI. AI had become science fiction. There weren't any breakthroughs in recent years. But then we got some breakthroughs. So Wright's Law is the first, figure out that cost curve decline and see how quickly the technology can proliferate across sectors. That's the other criterion here. The technologies that we are following are going to cut across economic sectors and apply to more than one group of people. And then the third is that these technologies serve as launching pads for new technologies. So in the case of DNA sequencing, which was the base technology, we needed that before CRISPR gene editing could be created. We needed to be able to understand what was mutating in the genome, where the programming errors were, so that gene editing could come in and edit out those programming errors.
And do you think in 5-10 years from now that unemployment is going to be higher or lower?
In 5 or 10 years, let's assume we don't have a policy mistake and a recession. So just steady state. I think it will be the same or lower. And most of this is because those baby boomers are retiring.
So they come out of the employment.
They come out of the labor force, and the generations following them are smaller. Even now, what's happening is we're passing through the baby boom echo, meaning the children of the baby boom. That cohort was, I don't think it was any bigger than the baby boom population.
Do you think there's, because of the speed and the acceleration of AI, the length of careers has radically reduced? Because you would go to school, then you go to university, you qualify as, I don't know, an accountant, and that's like a 10, 15-year process. You get a job as an accountant, you start working your way up. But now with AI coming in, some of these jobs are being completely annihilated extremely quickly.
At the same time, vibe coding is booming. So I think what's going to happen, and this will be very healthy for productivity, we're going to have a lot more experimentation and people taking risks on themselves. And maybe this idea of a corporation as we know it is going to change radically. You know, crypto is enabling distributed autonomous organizations. Just like Bitcoin, there's no one governing it, right? It's a distributed network. And, you know, let's see how these do and how vibe coding and AI integrate into the crypto. And I'm going to stop calling it crypto because it really should be called digital assets world, which legitimizes it more. Crypto sounds nefarious. Yeah. Digital assets is where, you know, more than young people, and I'll say young people are spending more than half of their discretionary, their free time online. And so property ownership online is becoming more important. It's being legitimized by the way people are spending their time.
On this point of robotics and AI, your biggest position, I believe, is Tesla, isn't it, in your fund?
Yes.
But obviously Elon decided that he wanted to go into politics. He wanted to do
Elon.
the Department of Government Efficiency called Doge. So teaming up with Trump to try and eliminate government waste. Now, as an investor, you must not love that.
Well, I have two. I have
because it did impact
2 points of view.
Performance of the company. Do you know, I drive a Tesla when I go to America, and it was the first time ever on the last trip to America in January. I live in LA now. Where I'm driving my Cybertruck. It's full self-driving. It's incredible. But it was the first time ever I thought, shit, I could be attacked. So I probably shouldn't get a Cybertruck. I should probably get something else, because I had all these reports of people being attacked. And so it was quite interesting to hear in the earnings report, which I listened to, that there's been this decline in revenue, in profitability, in vehicle sales growth, etc., in Q1 of this year, which I think even Elon in that earnings call highlights is a consequence of him becoming political.
Yes, I think that surprised him. So I have many thoughts about this. Our government has become so bloated, it is scary. And our indebtedness is growing. And if we want to remain the reserve currency of the world, we're at risk of losing it. And on our tail is the whole digital asset world, right? So government spending is taxation. It's either taxation that's going to happen immediately, or will happen in the future, or will happen through inflation, which is the most regressive tax at all. So I think the sentiment was right in terms of, getting in there and seeing what technology can do for the government, which is really what's happening. I'm watching it in the FDA, how they're starting to use AI. It's phenomenal what's happening. So the question I usually get, I'm very happy that half of the solution is understanding the problem, that someone is in there with that focus and determination. He, of course, has said he's stepping away this month, as a matter of fact, to spend more time with his companies.
Which you must be happy about.
Well, of course I'm happy about it, but I have, with the exception of this political dynamic, I don't think that Elon not being there on a day-to-day basis is what has caused the problem in the first quarter. It was much more macro. We had a negative quarter in real GDP growth in the first quarter. So macro, which is hitting everyone, and the overlay of this political dynamic. The news cycle, thank goodness, moves fast, and so we'll be through that, I think. And by the way, there are news reports even this weekend saying those who were feeling about him, as it relates to Doge and, one party, are having a change of heart because tax rates are going to come down because we're being more disciplined on the government spending side. Elon's way of managing his companies is to attract the best and the brightest, not only scientists, engineers, but also business people. These are people who want to solve the hardest problems in the world. He sets a timeline that seems reasonable to him for milestones to occur. And he doesn't interfere unless they start missing those milestones or the timing of those milestones. Then he gets involved. And that's where you hear he'll go in and he'll just fire people wholesale and get the program going again. And he's done that certainly at Tesla. He's done that at all of his companies. And so he's really troubleshooter in chief. Once he understands and has set a strategy, he then becomes troubleshooter in chief.
Have you met him?
Oh, yes, we did actually. Our first podcast with him was in 2019.
Oh, I saw that one.
During Production Hell.
Yeah.
And we were so happy. So, as you know, we have a social strategy. So we push our research out through social media as we give it away or as we're evolving it. And he liked a piece of research that Tasha Keeney had put out on autonomous back then. And I was on a phone call I couldn't get off, but I heard this whooping and screaming through the office. And I thought it sounded good. It wasn't an emergency, so I didn't have to leave that call. But I got out. I said, "What happened?" "Elon." And I said, "Okay, ask him if we can do a podcast." And we were there the next week.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
What do you think of him as an entrepreneur?
I think he's the Thomas Edison of our age in terms of his innovative ingenuity. And I also think, having met him a number of times, I think he's a very good person. He wants to do the right thing. If I had to say one thing, he wants to do the right thing to transform the lot of most of humanity. And he started with Tesla, SpaceX and Tesla. Tesla, was an environmental move, which I think a lot of people attacking his cars, who are probably very supportive of the environmental movement, they've forgotten. Sending a rocket to Mars and with humanoid robots and ultimately people, he thinks will transform life on Earth as well, because as we've learned from space history, what we learn about material science and technologies that help us break through into these very difficult problems to solve is going to help us here on Earth as well. So I think he's a very good person and wants to do the right thing. That, if I had to describe him, that's what I say, other than genius of our time.
I often wonder, right, because he's had such a profound impact on the world in many, many ways through the companies he started. I think the biggest risk really is just his own health. He doesn't seem to sleep much.
Though he says that he does sleep. I think
really?
he recommends, I think, if I'm right on this, getting 7 hours sleep a night. And yes, but when he is focused, you know it. I mean, people even look. There were many pictures of him, whether it was standing, with other policymakers, and then he zones into something, and he's zoned in and thinking about only that and a problem that he wants to solve. So
you've invested just over $2 billion in Tesla?
Let's see. So it would be roughly, yes,
in that region. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. You invested in Bitcoin very, very early. What was the first price that you bought Bitcoin for in, I think it was 2015?
Yes, it was in the summer of 2015. We got in at roughly $250. Today it's $104,000, I think, roughly. So we did get in very early. And we knew we were onto something, really, when people were making fun of us, saying, okay, that's a marketing trick. You're new to our business and, new to the new fund world, and you're trying to attract attention. And we were thinking, wow, they have no idea how much research we've done on this. And Art Laffer, my professor, again, from USC, we had him read our first white paper on Bitcoin. Bitcoin. Could it serve the three roles of money? So means of exchange, what we use every day to buy things, a store of value, like gold, and unit of account. Would prices be quoted in terms of Bitcoin? Chris Berdinsky was our first analyst on Bitcoin, wrote the paper, Art read it, and, added to it enormously in terms of economic theory, which was great for us. And then he said to us, this is what I've been waiting for since the US closed the gold window in 1971. A rules-based global monetary system, like Bretton Woods under the gold exchange standard. And I said, Art, that's a very big idea. How big is it? And he said, well, how big is the monetary base of the U.S.? Back then it was $4.5 trillion. And Bitcoin's market cap or network value was $6 billion. And I said, okay, that's a very big idea. And we were trying to get it into our portfolios. Regulators were hesitant, but I bought it right then for myself and haven't sold it. And I'm very happy with it.
You bought it for yourself personally?
Personally, because
what
we couldn't buy it. $250. So we couldn't buy it back then, but we finally got through the regulatory process. And we were able to put, the New York Stock Exchange said, okay, you can put a 1% position in the portfolio. And it was of a grantor trust called GBTC. So we did, and we just never sold it. They didn't tell us we had to keep it at 1%. So.
Oh, it's risen to be more.
Oh, yes, it ballooned.
And what is it about Bitcoin that you believe was and is still a good investment opportunity for the average person?
Yes. So at this price, it's about a $2 trillion market cap. And so halfway to that original $4.5 trillion, but our price target actually has expanded since then, because it's not just a global monetary system. It is a new asset class. And that's a very big idea as well. What makes a new asset class? And we haven't had one truly since equities in the 1600s.
When you say a new asset class, you mean a completely new category of
funding companies, yes, right?
So an asset class would be something like technology is an asset class, right?
No, it would be like stocks, bonds, commodities, real estate. This is a new asset class, and most people will agree with that. We did a study on it. If this asset does not perform like other assets, in other words, it provides diversification for funds. And because it is behaving differently, institutions have to consider it because they're competing against each other. And if one puts it in, they all know they're competing against each other. So others have to consider it. And we believe that part of the opportunity has not been tapped. And just to put some numbers on this, right now, we're approaching 20 million Bitcoin outstanding.
Which means?
The number of Bitcoin that have been minted over time by Bitcoin miners.
So there's 21 million in total, right?
There will be, at the end of the minting process, 21 million. So we have only 1 million to go.
Yeah.
1 million would be, what is that? That would be $100 billion worth, a little more than that right now.
So just for someone that might not know much about Bitcoin, Bitcoin is mined using computers. And so far they've mined 20 million of them, and there's 1 million of them left to mine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So institutions really just started considering Bitcoin because the SEC gave the green light to Bitcoin with the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF in January of last year. And it takes a while for institutions to do their research and commit. And so they're just now committing, and there's only $100 billion of new market cap that is going to be created, whereas they have trillions of dollars under management. And so we think there will be a lot of incremental demand, and to satisfy a lot of that demand, someone's going to have to sell.
Which means the price goes up.
Which, yeah, if people don't want to sell, because Bitcoin's been awfully good. And our forecast, right now the Bitcoin's around 105,000. Our forecast for 2030 is $1.5 million. And we do that, the building blocks for that, the three biggest building blocks are institutional, which has barely started, store of value or digital gold. Young people are much more comfortable with digital gold than gold.
So on the institutional side, that means institutions, investment institutions start investing in it. Mm-hmm. Young people start investing in it as a way to save and store their money.
Yes. And then the very important use case that many people do not discuss is how important Bitcoin and stablecoins, which are backed by U.S. Treasuries, are going to become to the emerging markets. In emerging markets, many of them are at the whim of policymakers who show no discipline in fiscal or monetary policy. And so they're used to going through booms and busts and booms and bailed out by the IMF, and they need an insurance policy.
So if you're in Venezuela, you need a currency that's going to be stable.
Exactly. Well, this Bitcoin is... so stable coins are stable vis-a-vis the dollar. Bitcoin is more of an investment because it does appreciate over time. Now you go through, it's volatile, no question, and that's the first thing people have to know about it. But it is becoming less volatile as more and more investors hold it.
So you think Bitcoin will potentially multiply in value by 15 times in the next 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that'd be pretty crazy.
It's a very big idea because it is a new asset class. It does represent a global monetary system, unlike any other digital asset out there. It is backed by the largest computer network in the world. The layer 1, which is the base layer, has not been hacked. Think about that. Since 2009, when it was released, not been hacked. How many systems can say that? And it is a technology. It is native to the internet. And again, digital assets, or any Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, all of them exist because they're vying to be the native currencies to the internet and to enable smart contracts and really transform the financial services industry.
Why did you invest in Coinbase?
Coinbase is an exchange for digital assets and increasingly derivatives. It has gone global. It just bought Deribit, which is the largest options exchange out there. And it owns a futures, so it's really going after the derivatives market, where there's a huge amount of activity, which is fantastic because it's all legitimizing digital assets. And it is the most regulatory compliant exchange in the world. Binance is another major exchange, but has had more run-ins with regulators around the world and really hasn't been allowed into the United States. It also wants to become part of the new payments infrastructure, and so is evolving strategies that way as well. We've gotten to know management very well. They fought the fight against regulators in a magnificent way, and they have educated policymakers, importantly, who understand that this innovation, we almost lost this innovation to the rest of the world because of our regulatory stance. They've helped policymakers understand that, hey, this infrastructure is what developers did not build into the internet in the early 90s because they didn't know finance or commerce would take place. That's all this is. It's that simple, right?
So if I'm trying to invest in, just to summarize it, if I'm trying to invest in AI, your key positions there and your key thoughts are companies like Tesla. I heard you invest in Twilio.
We had invested in Twilio. They had a management turnover, so we moved away from that. But Palantir. Yes, Palantir is a platform as a service company, which we think is not only going to help governments move into the digital age, like our Defense Department, and now it's moving into other departments, but also these huge enterprises, because it's not forcing them to rip and replace anything. They'll build on top of whatever technology infrastructure is there, and over time just usurp the role of the legacy technologies. So very important company, we think, in the digital age. It's had a very big run. We have taken profits, and while it was having a big run, NVIDIA was selling off. It was down more than 50%. So we put some of our Palantir proceeds back into NVIDIA.
Is there anything else in the AI bucket when you're thinking about stocks?
Well, when you're thinking about chip companies in particular, TSM is the platform for chip manufacturing. It doesn't matter who wins. We do think there are going to be many more competitors to NVIDIA. NVIDIA is still number one.
Have you heard about Grok?
Oh, yes. Grok, we are invested in our in our private fund.
Oh, okay. So just for people that might be confused.
Do you mean
Grok with a Q?
Yes, that's in our private fund. We do own Grok, and that's a very important company on the inference side of the equation.
I've invested in Grok as well.
Yeah.
I should probably disclaim that.
Well, I think you're going to do very well. So TSM though is where all the chip manufacturers go for production. It is the most sophisticated manufacturer of chips in the world. There is geopolitical risk there. Most of its business is in Taiwan. It is diversifying into certainly into the U.S. and I think even into Europe. So I think that will continue to be a very important company as well.
So what's your top 10 in terms of public stocks that anybody can invest in? If you had to give me your top 10.
So I'd have to give you, and they're listed on our website, and I won't go in order, I'm sure, but of course, Tesla, Coinbase, Robinhood. Roku is an operating system for connected TVs, highly misunderstood stock. CRISPR Therapeutics, which is the gene editing for sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia. Palantir, I think I've mentioned in the AI software space. Archer just moved into the top 10. It's the eVTOL company, and it also signed a deal, an exclusive deal on both sides, which was quite impressive, with Anduril, which is the most sophisticated defense tech play, and is growing like gangbusters. So that's terrific. Shopify, which is a shopping platform back end and really using AI.
Roblox?
Oh, that's the one we're missing. Roblox,
which is a game, right?
Yes, it's a user-generated gaming company. Fascinating, and it's also a social platform. It started for children younger than 13 years old. And what's interesting about it is they've stayed with it because 60% of its user base now is above 13, which is very interesting. It's the largest user-generated content provider out there. And what is fascinating about it is I know one of my friend's daughter has started her own dress shop on Roblox. And what she doesn't understand is that she's learning about business, but she's also learning how to code, especially in this new vibe coding world. So I think it's going to be a very important company going forward. The interesting thing about gaming and technology transitions is that it is the only entertainment medium that has not fallen apart with technology transitions. It has actually grown because those who love their games from 25 years ago still play them. It's grown with each technology revolution. So, and user-generated content in gaming is the next big thing.
A business is only as good as the people inside it. So how do you make sure you're hiring the best? Our sponsor LinkedIn can help you find these applicants quickly. I believe in taking time to hire slowly, but I also understand that once you've decided to hire, you want to get the ball rolling and get the best candidates in front of you to start interviewing. And that's where paying to promote your role on LinkedIn makes all the difference, because you'll get applicants 7 times faster than if you post your job for free. And even though slower, more considered hiring is important, you never want your hiring platforms to be what's holding you back. LinkedIn keeps pace. It takes care of the heavy lifting, sending you highly skilled candidates that you wouldn't find anywhere else. So when the time comes to make your next hire, make it count and promote your job on LinkedIn. Head to linkedin.com/DOAC. That's linkedin.com/DOAC, and terms and conditions apply. Make sure you keep what I'm about to say to yourself. I'm inviting 10,000 of you to come even deeper into the Diary of a CEO. Welcome to my inner circle. This This is a brand new private community that I'm launching to the world. We have so many incredible things that happen that you are never shown. We have the briefs that are on my iPad when I'm recording the conversation. We have clips we've never released. We have behind the scenes conversations with the guests, and also the episodes that we've never ever released, and so much more. In the circle, you'll have direct access to me. You can tell us what you want this show to be, who you want us to interview, and the types of conversations you would love us to have. But remember, for now, we're only inviting the first 10,000 people that join before it closes. So if you want to join our private closed community, head to the link in the description below or go to doaccircle.com. I will speak to you then. If you had $1,000 to invest and you had to invest it somewhere, where would you be investing it?
Well,
And how would you be like the general philosophy towards wealth creation at such a stage? If you had $1,000, how would you be thinking about creating wealth for yourself?
a couple of things. Averaging into either an ETF,
What's an ETF?
ETF, exchange traded fund. So it treats a group of stocks like one stock. So ARKK it's 36 stocks, but you can buy them by purchasing ARKK.
And you can do that on your mobile phone by
You
downloading
can do it on your mobile phone.
a bunch of different apps that allow you to just buy that one ETF, which means you own 35 stocks.
Yes. And
And your team are basically choosing what those 35 stocks are
yes.
based on your research.
Right, and ARKK are our highest conviction stocks, and they offer an exposure to all of the innovation platforms that we've talked about, whereas ARKI here in Europe is focused primarily on artificial intelligence and robotics, because we think that convergence is going to be pretty explosive. What you don't get there, and you do get in ARKK, we also have in another very focused fund, ARKG, which is really healthcare applications of AI, and other healthcare names that we think are going to be pretty transformative in the new world as regulators really understand how important AI is going to become to discovery, research, trials, development, to diagnostic tests, and to curing disease.
Another question popped up, which is about Ethereum and these other cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
Do you invest in any of these others?
Yes, we have, in our public funds, we've put them, I don't think we can own them here in the UK yet, but in the US, we have them in some of our funds, both of them. They're key to the financial services revolution. So to get people to understand and feel comfortable with that, we don't call it the crypto revolution. It's the digital assets revolution, and it's simply the finternet, the financial internet. Okay, so we do.
And do you believe, are you more bullish on the price potential of Bitcoin than Ethereum?
Yes, we think Bitcoin is the biggest idea. It serves the three revolutions. Global monetary system, they do not. New asset class, they are part of a new asset class, but Bitcoin's going to be the biggest. And new technology, it's the most secure blockchain technology out there.
What about all these others, Solana and all these other?
So Ether and Solana, so the big three are the big three. And we think they'll all be successful, all three of them. Bitcoin the most. We're very interested in stable coins, but that's just like cash. And, there are millions of crypto assets out there. We think most of them die.
Is there any way to invest in stable coins? Like, how do you invest in this?
So indirectly, right now, it is through Coinbase. They have a deal with Circle. Any revenue that Circle generates, its stablecoin is USDC.
Yeah.
Any revenue they split 50-50 in US. Circle itself has announced that it is going public, and so we're looking forward to that.
And what's the sort of psychology or mentality one has to adopt to be a good investor?
Depends what you've bought. If you buy a strategy like ours, which would be in the aggressive growth strategy, put it in, averaging in over time, just like with Bitcoin, as I mentioned earlier, averaging in over time.
What does averaging in mean?
Averaging in means, buy a little every month, maybe every payday. I think one of my daughters was buying Bitcoin every week, but not a Bitcoin. She couldn't do that. A Satoshi, and close your eyes. This is a long-term investment. If we're right, according to our analysis. Now, this is our research, our analysis, no promises. We can't do that. But according to our research, the technologies around which we have centered our research and which have focused our investments, we believe will go up more than tenfold in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's how much explosive growth we have ahead of us as these technologies converge and create incredible opportunities for investors. And, I'm hearing a lot of people, as they get into investing, of course they have their day jobs, but once they have accrued enough, they're making choices about dialing down their day jobs and spending more time investing. You asked, what are some of the jobs of the future going to be? I think individual investors are going to be providing for themselves if they are investing on the right side of change.
So if you're right, that means that by investing your fund, I would make 1,000% return, roughly.
Yes, no promises, but this is all based on research, and you can find it in our Big Ideas. Big Ideas 2025 is on our website, arc-invest.com. And you can find a lot more information about our funds on arc-funds.com.
And I should probably say this is not investing advice.
It is not. And I want to make sure. Do your own research.
You can lose all of your money.
Yes.
You can lose all of it if you decide to do any of these things.
But that's why we put ARC-Invest separate from the fund site, because that's just research. Learn what you're investing in, or learn what.
So guys, with that, we come to an end of the session. We've been live for 4 hours, and a bit of little trading things that we talked about, and a lot more things on whatever happens in the industry, seeing the interviews of the people who have been so successful, the co-founders, the investment strategies and things like that we're discussing. I hope these sessions are making some kind of sense to you guys and also helping you out on your day-to-day journey. I do understand for a fact that crypto industry is not easy to understand. Of course, the jargons, the terminologies, the things that are there in this industry is too hard to grasp at one time. So we will go a bit slow. We will go really slow, and there's nothing like we are in this rat race or something. So it's very much okay, even if it at first instance you don't understand, because sometimes even I don't understand a lot of things and then I cope up with it. So that's all from my end, guys. So we will end this session on that note, and thanks so much for joining in, whoever has joined. Only ask from my side and my end is you guys should be more interactive if you guys want to get in touch. For a fact that our Zbit platform is also live, and we want you guys to basically download that app and make as much use of it as possible, so that you know what you are heading towards. So guys, I hope to see you tomorrow at the same time between 4 to 8, and we will be coming up with a lot more things that we are going to see in whatever we are going to cover up. So thanks so much once again, and let the video continue, and I will take a leave. My name is Nida Afreen, and I am the host for Cheesybit and Zbit platform. So take care of yourself. Happy investing. Nothing that I say in these videos are any kind of investment advice. So you have to do your own research, because anything you put into, you might lose out on everything. So you have to be very, very careful in terms of investing or putting your money for whatever reasons you're doing. So please, please, please do your own research, and happy investing and trading. Take care of yourself. Have a great, great evening ahead.
We've invested the way we have. You know, that's what we do all day long, is we try and help. Well, first of all, we're doing the research. We are making the investments, but I think one of the most important things we do is communicate what we're doing and why we're doing it.
What do you think of Trump, tariffs, everything that's going on in America at the moment? What's, you know, for the average person, should they be concerned? Are you bullish? Do you think Trump's got it right?
If you look at what happened to the equity market when Trump was elected.
The stock market?
Yes, the stock market. It went crazy to the upside, as did our strategy. And why? The promise was deregulation, and that I think is underestimated, how important it is, because we're strangling in regulation. It's just, this is not our DNA. We got to get out from under this. Lower taxes, lower interest rates is what he wants, of course, and lower tariffs. What he didn't tell us was exactly how he was going to go about that process. And it has felt chaotic. And I've had to go out and explain what's going on, try to explain what's going on. And I have to tell you, it scared me silly to see what was going on, because I knew that businesses were paralyzed and that we could have a mess on our hands. And I certainly communicated through my channels. Art communicated through his channels. In fact, I think in one publication he said, I have never been more scared in my career. And we were trying to really get into Trump's head. And I know President Trump listens to art, but he also listens to a lot of other people, one of whom was Peter Navarro, who seemed to have a hold on Trump when it came to tariffs. And yet, when I saw Treasury Secretary Bessent really push aside Navarro, and that could only happen with Trump, I knew we were going to be okay. I knew we were going to be okay. Because throughout all of this chaos, I think what he is trying to do is not only get tariffs on the US down throughout the world, but maybe more important, get non-tariff trade barriers down. Like, for example, I didn't even know the UK would not accept our beef or ethanol. Well, now you're accepting our beef and ethanol. I don't know if people in the supermarkets will buy it, but anyway, but other countries, many more non-tariff trade barriers. And so he is just trying to bust that up, make it more visible. For example, Canada, I think they charged a 250% tariff on our milk. And one of President Trump's promises was to take care of the farmers. Okay, that's why you see the rhetoric around Canada. Now, do I agree with his style? I would never do it that way. I'd never do it that way. And it was unfathomable, for me, because he is sensitive to business, and he must have known that everything was going to stop. And, but he also knows that he has to sound crazy for other people to take him seriously. And people have to believe he will do crazy things in order for people to take him seriously. And he does do crazy things.
So do you think it's going to work out?
I do.
You do?
And I think the stock market is beginning to smell it.
If I just had to invest in one stock right now, what stock would you recommend I invested in?
Okay, well, I have to give you
your portfolio.
Pick.
So it would be Tesla?
It would be Tesla if I had to give you one stock.
Okay, interesting.
Because think about it. It is a convergence among three of our major platforms. So robots, energy storage, AI. And it's not stopping with robo-taxis. There's a story beyond that with humanoid robots. And our $2,600 number has nothing for humanoid robots. We just thought it'd be an investment period. And, but I think he's going to start generating not only productivity gains internally, but revenues from humanoid robots.
What are you concerned about in terms of the way that the world is going and everything that's happening? What are the things that keep you up at night? I've got many a concern, so I've got many unanswered questions and worries about how things might play out, but keen to hear yours.
I am such an optimist. I really do have to dig down deeply. If you had asked me this a few weeks ago, I would have said, this tariff situation is going to blow the global economy up if we're not careful. So I'm much more settled about that right now. I'd have to say I am concerned that there are going to be people caught out by these new technologies and for whatever reason not willing to adapt, because there are going to be huge opportunities if they do. And so one of the reasons we give away our research, I'm very honored to do a podcast like